Good evening. I'm calling to order this August 14th, 2012 meeting of the Hudson Board of Education. Please stand if you are able and join us as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Board members, you have before you the meeting's agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I second it. Discussion, please.
Go ahead.
I object to the agenda the way it's written for two reasons. One is because of the free speech restrictions that you're placing on the public speaking section of this meeting. And the other one is that what is missing from the agenda. I had requested that an item be placed on the agenda to allow me to address the board, you people, over the events that happened at the July meeting, and I was denied that opportunity. So I believe that is missing from the agenda. So now that I've got my objections on the record, I would call for a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a motion by Mark and a second by Brian? By Pat? Sorry. Motion by Mark, second by Pat. Roll call vote. Starting with Pat.
Bell, aye.
I mean, this is to pass?
To approve the agenda.
To approve the agenda, okay. Aye. German, aye.
Kaiser shot aye.
Robson, aye.
Gerke, no.
Agenda's approved. First item on the agenda is recognition, or next item on the agenda is recognition. And I'm turning it over to Corey.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Pam Morrison, one of our early childhood special education teachers, to come up to the mic, please. Pam's worked in the district for going on her 14th year. She just reminded me. So right here at the mic. Thanks, Pam. And Pam has been nominated. Well, you can face us, face the board. Turn the mic this way. Just keeping you guessing, Pam. Pam's been nominated for and has accepted the position of co-chair for the St. Croix County Success by 6 Community Leadership Committee. She'll be serving in this capacity in addition to her position in the school district. Pam was nominated by Mary Sue Ash, who's the Success by 6 coordinator for the United Way in St. Croix Valley. And Pam was selected for her position due to her extensive background, experience, and effective leadership in early childhood education. We've been fortunate to see that the last 13 years here in Hudson. And Success by 6 is a community initiative in St. Croix, Pierce, and Polk counties. And the intent is to have all children developmentally ready when they get to kindergarten. And there are county-wide committees in each county. So during the upcoming school year, Pam's responsibilities will be to help facilitate the planning on targeting 3 to 5 age groups, students or children, and identifying what programs and services are in place in the counties where the gaps are, and then selecting the priorities for this age group and coordinating those services. So as a co-chair of this committee, Pam will provide the leadership and direction for the committee, help determine priorities and implementation for 3 to 5-year-olds, which Pam works with that age group every day. So I've asked Pam just to make a couple comments about moving into this role and getting this recognition and responsibility to co-chair the committee. So Pam, would you like to share a few thoughts?
It was exciting to get nominated.
Step the mic and just talk right into that. Thank you. Real close.
It was exciting to get nominated, or to be asked by Mary Sue Ash to co-chair this with her. I have a very vested interest in that age population, and to work with our communities in looking at that age range and that population of student. And the Success by 6 has a lot of wonderful things that they do. One of the things that they're also looking at is social and emotional well-being of children, which is really exciting. So it's an exciting committee. I've been a part of that committee for a couple of years, and co-chairing it makes everybody in their silos come together, and it's excited to be a part of that.
Well, thank you, Pam. We congratulate Pam in this position and her service to the children of St. Croix County and to lead the efforts to get students ready for kindergarten. Thank you, Pam.
Madam President,
Mary.
I just want to echo
Corey's remarks about Pam's leadership. We have been very fortunate in the district and our students have as well throughout our community to benefit from her leadership. She is definitely one of our extraordinary teacher leaders, and we thank Pam for all the work she's done and all her contributions to our students.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Nancy Sweet.
Okay, I am very pleased to introduce Michelle Hagan, coordinator of the district's school age care program. The Hudson School Age Care Program is a model for other schools. The program has a long and successful history, and we are very proud of the work of our school age care employees that they do every day to care for and to stimulate the learning of the Hudson children. Michelle will introduce you to one of her employees who acted quickly and competently to save the life of a child in the program. They both are attired in their school age care uniforms with a with a suit coat over the top, I see. Michelle?
Okay. Hi, I'm here to introduce you to Mr. Culbertson. Brian has worked for us for the past 2 summers. He is currently studying to be a teacher. I was very impressed with the way that Brian quickly responded to a child who was in need. His quick response probably saved a life. Brian is part of a team of school-age care staff who are incredibly talented and dedicated to providing a safe and enriching summer experience for our students. So I would like to introduce you to Mr. Culbertson. He's going to talk a little bit about saving a life.
I would like actually to begin by thanking Michelle Hagan and Nancy Sweet for the positive recognition in this situation, because it's easy to make light of things when they work out for the best. I believe, however, that recognition needs to be extended to the entire school age care program. The program is organized in a way that is conducive to the enjoyment, the enrichment, and the safety of the children, and the staff takes the responsibility of providing for the program participants extremely seriously. That being said, I'm glad that I was able to carry out my responsibilities in responding to a child's need as part of the school age care program. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian and Michelle, for all you do with school age care. It's a great program. Next on the agenda is a superintendent's report. Mary?
Madam President and board members and those in our audience this evening, we are very fortunate this evening to accept a very generous gift from Hudson Area Special Olympics that Jerry Gilbert's going to present to us. So Jerry, if you move forward to the microphone as I make a few comments. This gift is to support our students with disabilities. And Jerry has a very rich history in the district, as well as his family, well known in our community. Jerry is part of the class of 1966 from Hudson High School. His father was on the school board for 15 years, Norman R. Gilbert, and he was president for 12 years. His mother, Mary, taught 2nd grade at 4th Street School and at EP Rock. So certainly rich history in the district, rich contributions to the Hudson School District, our students, and certainly to this community. And Jerry continues that in his business work in our community as well. So Jerry, would you like to talk about the gift for us?
Yes, thank you for the warm welcome. In the early 1980s, a group of people in our community got together and we started what's called the Hudson Area Special Olympics. There was a couple families that had special needs children. And we just got together and started the the organization. We raised funds to help the special needs children get to Special Olympics programs. In the 80s, we also sponsored the Hudson Area Special Olympics in Hudson for 2 years before it was moved to Eau Claire. And it was the same group and this funding that did that. After the Special Olympics got moved to Eau Claire, we kept the fund going, but there was not as much need, and there's not as many children at that time that needed these funds. In the late 80s, I took from Jeff Baumeister, and these funds have just been sitting dormant for approximately 20 years. I finally came to Corey and said, you know, we need to use this money and use it where it needs to be. And Terry, I gave you the form already. Would you read what I put on the form, how these funds should be used?
The instructions or the intended purpose of the donation is to support athletic programs for disabled students, to include Special Olympics, floor hockey, track, and field day, and similar events.
So, with this donation, I'm a very emotional person, I'm sorry, but it's $35,821.03. So I'd like to donate this.
Did you get a picture? It's not every day we get this size of gift. It's such a generous gift to the district and certainly to support our students with disabilities. And we appreciate your motions as a result of this. Student Services Director Corey McIntyre will be working with Jerry on how these funds will be distributed. And the ideas that they've talked about up to this point are to use the funds to rejuvenate the adaptive sports program for our students and to provide financial support for a student athlete or student athletes to participate in Special Olympics. So those are a couple of the ideas. I think there'll probably be some more to come, and Jerry will be involved in those conversations. And certainly, please extend our thanks to everyone who has been involved in this over the years. You have had a great history with the Hudson School District, and this is another way of contribution, so thank you.
Ms. Love just came up too and mentioned that Jerry was also recognized as a distinguished alumni just last year as well.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that too. We're very fortunate to have you in the community and part of the Hudson School District. Madam President, should I move on?
Yes, please.
All right. So the next topic is preparation for the school year. I could take an awful lot of time of talking about what's happened to prepare for our staff to return and our students, and I will highlight a few of those activities that have recently occurred. We've had student registration at all of our schools. Our fall athletes and coaches are practicing now. Many, many teachers in our district are involved in professional development experiences before they start work for the school year. And I'm going to highlight some of the work of our departments. Human resource, certainly kudos to human resources along with our principals for all of their work to complete our hiring. We have 2 partial teaching positions left to date and a few support staff positions. Also, work has been done in student transportation, working with Safeway, our bus provider, to arrange the transportation of over 4,000 students, certainly a big task. In student services, new hires will be in this week for orientation, so that's starting already, and they are working diligently on student placement before the school year starts. In learning services, they have spent an enormous amount of time on summer school, and Sandy's going to talk about that later on in the agenda. They have also, we have wireless upgrade now in all of our elementary schools, and that completes the wireless upgrade throughout the district. Instructional resources, also a big task during the summer, new instructional resources being distributed to all our schools. In financial services, the secured entrances at our schools are complete. The ones that were completed this summer are Willow River, Holton, North Hudson, and the high school. And all of our schools now have the secured entrances like the one that you walked in at Rivercrest this evening. Nutritional services has set a lofty health goal for the year, and that goal is to increase fresh fruit and vegetable consumption by 25% for our students. Certainly a very good and lofty and important goal. Although it's not quite the beginning of the school year preparation, our annual audit is underway in financial services, so certainly a major initiative to go through all the work that has occurred throughout the year. School calendar is at the printer, and I know people have had to be a little patient, and that will be coming out soon. At our elementary schools, I just have to give kudos to so many of our teachers who are volunteering their time and are already back in their classrooms and getting them ready, getting the rooms and materials ready for our students to return. The school offices are buzzing with activity. We've had a math leadership team studying learning interventions, and various groups of teachers have been unpacking or working on the new Common Core standards so that they can use those in their classrooms to help our students learn at higher levels. At the middle school, I was there just this week, and I saw a team of teachers working with Dan Koch, the principals, on developing the SMART goal for the coming year, and planning professional development aligned with that SMART goal. Math and language arts teachers have been meeting throughout the summer to plan curriculum and instruction, and counselors are currently at a PBIS conference. High school, Laura gave me a long list, so I'm going to pick a few things from that list, and there are a few at every level, and much more going on, certainly. So there are numerous staff leadership meetings underway. There are also student leadership activities, and two of those are, there is student leadership training going on at Camp St. Croix, and there is student mentor support for the freshman new student orientation night. In adult leadership, there has been the Healthcare Advisory Council meeting has been going on, and homecoming is the second week in September, so planning certainly has been underway all summer. Our summer academy for teachers and certified staff starts August 20th, so next week, so it's August 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And 430 total certified staff are going to be taking 659 classes to increase their skills and help to plan for the school year. And a couple of those activities that they are involved in is a school leadership retreat for 70 K-12 staff, developing SMART goals for this coming year. Mentor training to add to our team of certified mentors, and there are 16 of those classes that I talked about are taught by teachers for teachers, so Hudson teachers for teachers. August 22nd, next week, is new staff orientation, and we have our annual Hudson Chamber of Commerce luncheon that's sponsored by our local businesses. That is an event that certainly is a wonderful way to welcome our new teachers and to get them acquainted with our businesses in this community, and certainly something that we look forward to and we know that they enjoy. August 28th, all teachers will be back and preparing their classrooms, preparing for students, and participating in collaborative professional learning activities. And then comes September 4th, and that's the first day of school. And certainly a lot of preparation is going on to prepare for our students to come back and to have our students, our schools come alive once again with the voices and the energy and the excitement and the learning of our students. So we're all looking forward to that. And unless there's any questions?
Board members, do you have any questions or comments for me? We are at the reports section of the agenda. I'll turn it back over to Mary for the 2011-12 SMART goal results.
And I'll just say a few comments as Dave Grambo and company will come up to give this report. We've been working on SMART goals for about 5 years now as a means of setting goals to improve student learning and monitoring our results. The goals are focused at the school level, and the Learning Services Associate Director, Dave Grambo, leads this effort along with our principals and teacher leaders at each of the schools. I just talked a few minutes ago about the 70 certified staff who are coming together for a SMART goal retreat, and those are teacher leaders and principals working together to set challenging goals for us this next year. So Dave.
Thank you very much for inviting us to share our SMART goal results for the 2011-2012 school year. This is an opportunity that we really look forward to. It's an opportunity for us to share a little of our learning results on the student side as well as the learning of our teachers. We look forward to this opportunity because we can show our efforts towards continuous improvement, and that's where it gets really exciting. It's an exciting process on an annual basis when we set the goals and we strive to reach those goals, but even more exciting when we look at these goals over time. In 2011, Mike Schmoker wrote a book called Focus. This is a quote from that book. "If we choose to take just a few well-known, straightforward actions, we can make swift, dramatic improvements." That's exactly what we attempt to do with the SMART goal process. The SMART goal process, you betcha. You betcha. The SMART goal process inherently increases focus by providing a common goal, connected objectives, and shared actions for all staff and all students. We continually strive to guarantee that all staff members are directly connected to the SMART goal process. There's no shortage of acronyms in the educational field, and the SMART acronym is one that I thought we could spend some time revisiting so you can understand exactly what that's all about. There are several different versions of this acronym. We use one that is widely accepted, and the S in this acronym stands for specific. And the specific nature of the goals is really what allows us to track continual progress over time. And it also is specific in such a way that it allows all teachers to fully understand their role and their connection to that goal. The M is for measurable. And the measurable nature of the goal is what allows teachers and administrators, and honestly students, to make data-based decisions. The measurability is what allows us to gather the data and make the choices. The A is for attainable. And with the attainable element of this acronym, what that guides us to do is set goals that are lofty and help stretch the system, but at the same time are achievable. If they are set too high, they become demotivating. If they're not set high enough, they don't increase that sense of urgency to help drive the system forward. The R is for results-based, and the results-based nature of the goal allows us to set measurable benchmarks along the way that help us track our progress toward that goal. And finally, the T is for time-bound, and the time-bound nature of these goals, we need a beginning and an end point. And by having that beginning and the end point, it does help us increase that sense of urgency. It's not just a goal that floats out there. We have a set time in which we'd like to achieve that goal. The SMART goal process is a complicated process, and it's one that actually has been refined over the years. Mary alluded to the school leadership retreat. Actually, our school leadership retreat for this upcoming year is Monday, and that's the point at which we set the goal. During this process, we have 70 teachers involved this year, K-12, and we look at data, we examine the data, we look at past goal history, and we come up with our process of actually setting the goals during that meeting. And it's an all-day event, very energizing. It's an opportunity to get many of our teacher leaders back in the buildings and thinking about teaching and learning once again. And the teams, what they do after the goal is set, they research best practices. And those best practices are associated directly with the goal. So If we have a goal on literacy, we're looking at best practices in literacy. If we have a goal in math, that's what we'd be looking at. Some of those best practices are then implemented system-wide, while others are examined on what we call an action research basis, which would have small groups of teachers trying out these goals, and then what we do is we track the progress toward the goal throughout the entire year. The role of the SMART goals is expanding. As we learn more and more of what is possible through the SMART goal process, we can expand it to reach even more students and more staff. One thing that happens, one way that the SMART goal process is expanded is through the implementation and monitoring of the goal. What we have found are strategies and measures that we can put in place that increase the number of staff members that are directly connected to the goal. One of our shortcomings the first few years with SMART goals is we may have a very specific SMART goal that in its original iteration seemed only to be applicable to a small group of teachers. We've learned now how to involve the entire staff in the SMART goal process. A part of the SMART goal process that is absolutely essential is the collaboration. The SMART goal process is driven by teacher collaboration. At all three levels, we have specific measures in place and specific systems in place that allow teachers to collaborate on a regular basis. We don't often talk about it, but the SMART goal work drives that collaboration. Many of the conversations that teachers have in their collaborative professional learning communities revolves around the SMART goal process. And finally, it's being expanded in that our students now have a more direct connection to the SMART goal process. In the past, the SMART goal process really was a teacher-based practice. We've learned that we can have a much stronger effect on student learning if the students are directly involved in that process. And we open by talking about continuous improvement. And continuous improvement is really what the SMART goal process is all about. The process begins by setting original goals based on data. Sometimes that data is qualitative, that may be gathered by student surveys, teacher surveys. It's more on the perceptual side. Sometimes it's quantitative, which means it'll have the hard numbers behind it. The goals are flexible. Sometimes we will adapt a goal at the end of the year and realize that it maybe wasn't focused exactly on what we were trying to obtain with student learning. And sometimes we have to make adjustments, not within the goal that we set, but within the actions that we set forth for the goal. Sometimes we make those during the year. A way that we're also able to add to the cycle of continuous improvement is by focusing on a specific goal over time. This is, as opposed to having a goal for 1 year, seeing if you make it or you don't make it, and then going through the process all over again, setting a new goal. We set some long-term goals, and we work on an annual basis to meet those long-term goals. And then finally, building the system which allows all parties and all stakeholders to be directly involved in the monitoring of the progress toward that eventual goal. We're going to talk about all three levels tonight, and we're going to talk about focus and the focus at each level. At the high school, you'll learn about a focus on feedback, freshman success, and high expectations. At the middle school, you'll learn about a focused school-wide literacy goal for all teachers and all students. And at the elementary level, you'll learn how a sustained focus on literacy has resulted in over 300 more students reading at or above grade level expectations in just 4 years. And with that, I'll hand it over to Principal Love.
Please. Okay, so one of our SMART goals was focused on quality feedback because one of the research information shares that one of the most important ways students improve learning is to receive timely, critical feedback on their learning. So last year, the students reported to us that 56% of the students reported that they indicated that they were receiving quality feedback in their classrooms, and we wanted to improve that. So our goal this year was 67%. The action plans that we took to improve our feedback to students was initially to study a book together that was written by Susan Brookhart, and then she came and spoke to us in August. That would be us being the high school staff. In addition, we worked on developing a common definition of feedback, both with students and with staff, on what is feedback for learning, and then used a variety of feedback strategies in the classroom, and then teams, as Dave mentioned, worked collaboratively to improve their feedback to students on their performance. The results of that work were that we achieved and exceeded our goal of 67%, and students report 71.2% of our students 9 through 12 reported that they were receiving quality feedback that was provided in a variety of fashions. Our second SMART goal was focused on freshman success, and that was a lofty goal based on the data that we had received the year before, and yet we wanted to achieve 90% of freshmen meeting 3 indicators of success: high level of attendance, earning 6 credits toward graduation, and reporting positive connection with at least 1 staff member at Hudson High School. So our actions to achieve that, as you know, were to implement freshman advisories with all of our freshmen and to train 22 teachers to provide advisor curriculum to the students. I sent a weekly update on the lessons in the advisory to every teacher once a week. And then we worked, even though this wasn't directly part of the goal, it's part of our culture, we worked to decrease disciplinary referrals among freshmen based on providing behavioral expectations. In addition, we provided professional development to the faculty on the change cycle in order to support the freshman transition. The results of that, we didn't quite make 90%, but 85.1% of our freshmen had 95% attendance or better. 89% of our freshmen earned a minimum of 6 credits. And the results that I had reported to you with the High School Learning for the Future initiative were that 87% of our freshman girls and 78% of our freshman boys reported a positive connection with at least 1 staff member. And those numbers are up from the previous year, where 49% of the freshman girls reported a positive connection and 56% of the freshman boys reported a positive connection. So we had over 22% in each of those groups increase from the previous year. Our third SMART goal was focused on advanced placement courses, the college level courses students can take in high school. And as you know, it's been growing, and we've continued to try to grow it. And this year we implemented a couple of additional courses, but our goal was that by June 2012, there would be a 10% increase in the total number of AP exams taken from the previous May. All the AP exams are given in May. And the percentage of students passing would remain at 80% or better. And actually it was 79% the previous year. So our actions were to encourage all AP students in the courses to take the exam. They had really nothing to lose to take that exam. And we really promoted AP courses among all the students, and especially students who may not have otherwise considered AP classes, who really should be considering AP classes. We did that through bringing students in to speak to students in AP prep courses, and also then having counselors and advisors work with the students to develop a 4-year plan that was appropriate. The results of our work there was that we exceeded the goal of having 10% increase in taking exams, and the number, I think Sandy's going to report to you about specific numbers later, but the number that we increased over last May was 19.5%. We did dip slightly, and I'll explain that just a little bit, but we had 50 more passing scores on the AP exams this year than last year. And just a note there, in the junior year, AP US History is the course that we encourage students to take who are appropriate to take it. And we have approximately 170 juniors select to take that course over a different social studies course. That is not quite half of the class, and yet it still has a fairly high level of passing rate. I think this year it was over 73%. And then in the senior year, just one of the courses that we offer has over 240 students take the course, and that's AP Psychology, and that has close to an 80% passing rate as well. And that's well over 50% of our seniors who are taking that AP class. And of course, we have many more take them, but that just gives you an example of how challenging it is to pass a college level exam in May of junior or senior year. And yet, we're still going to strive to reach higher than 80% in the future.
Thank you. The middle school undertook a SMART goal this year that was building wide. We didn't break it down by grade level or house. It was every student and every teacher in the building involved in this particular SMART goal. And the goal itself was to increase the percentage of students who would meet or exceed their growth target goal on their NWEA reading test. And we had scored at around 58% in the past in terms of the percentage of our students who actually met the prescribed targets. And our goal was to increase that to 63% as measured on a spring test. The actions that we took were actually many and varied. First of all, 15 minutes of free reading time during advisory. It may not seem like a lot to you, but every day giving students the opportunity to free read for 15 minutes in the context of their advisory is an important component of what we're trying to do. And I can also comment that it was not a strange or foreign activity to many of our 6th and 7th graders. They had been experiencing that in the elementary school for a number of years. So the connections, we're beginning to make those connections and extend the literacy initiative obviously up into and through the middle school, sort of taking our last best shot at helping students improve that fundamental skill of reading. So 15 minutes of free reading time. Then the thing that I think may have made the greatest difference for us was that every student met individually with every teacher. They set goals with respect to how they would attack the improvement that they sought with regard to their reading target. Each teacher conferenced with the student. The student wrote down the goals. The student also then was given a chart by which they could measure their progress as we continued to measure their reading success during the school year. It began with a baseline test in the fall. There was a midline assessment. There was a winter assessment, another midterm or midline assessment, and then the final assessment in the spring. Students charted their progress on a graph as they went through, and they found it very interesting, very rewarding to see their steady growth as they were moving toward achieving their target. We provided professional development for all of our staff in very specific reading strategies. We also made sure that the reading strategies about which they were in service were implemented in every classroom, every subject area, and by every teacher. And that it was just not in the cores, not just our language arts teachers doing this, but our math teachers, our tech ed teachers, our music teachers, everyone was involved in helping students move forward in their reading progress. Teacher reflection groups, we routinely scheduled those groups for teachers to get together and to talk about the successes they'd had in their particular classrooms, what selections they had chosen. They shared ideas and strategies and ways in which they implemented in their own classes. And that collegial approach certainly helped our staff accept and understand how they could best reach our students and in what ways they could help them move toward their targets. And then finally, there were certain reading incentives. Middle schoolers like competitions, and obviously we had house competitions and grade level competitions as well, and they always seem to respond quite well, to that. And we did indeed take the time to celebrate the success that we had with our SMART goal. Finally, the success that we did have was very, very pleasing to us, and I hope you understand that we're trying to move an entire building. The scale on which we attempted this was significant. With 1,300 students, well, actually it was 1,289 at that point in time, and I think we're looking at 1,316 right about now, somewhere in that neighborhood. But to move the entire building and to have the entire staff on the same page, moving students in the same direction, was a significant undertaking for us, and we were very, very proud of the fact that on a test of this nature, we were able to move our students to the point of 64% of our students had indeed achieved their reading target as measured on that spring test. We will continue with this. It's not a one-shot initiative. It's something we want to continue and build upon, continue to strengthen our students' reading skills. So we'll expand upon the goal by adding strategies, additional strategies, providing professional development for our staff through this upcoming year, and continue to move our students forward in reading success.
All right, with that, we'll invite three of our elementary principals up to share the elementary results for the 2011-2012 SMART goal process.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about the work surrounding the 2011-12 elementary SMART goal. And although there are 3 of us up here, we want you to know that the work is reflective of the 6 elementary schools in collaboration. So, as you can see on the graph on the screen there, that this is showing growth over time. Having students read at or above grade level has been a measured focus of our SMART goals since 2008. You can see that the slide reflects a steady growth upward, leading to this last year's goal of 90% of our K-5 learners will be reading at or above grade level as measured by common assessments. My colleagues, Ms. Prather and Mr. Schmidt, will be explaining some of the actions taken this year that contributed toward these results.
As Travis had shared, we have been working on SMART goal and having these high expectations for all of our kids at the elementary level. What we are really working on for our actions are really refining the system that we have that really has high expectations for all students. One of the first actions that we took is the implementation of Making Meaning, which is a program that really works at the comprehension skills for our students kindergarten through 5th. And it really works on the rigorous comprehension strategies that are needed for the Common Core standards, and also some of the common strategies that they're using in the middle school as well. Another action that we did is really increase the interest in reading at the elementary level. As you all know, elementary students are just excited to learn and to read, and we wanted to continue that for all of our kids. We started the year off with Stephen Lane, who was our keynote speaker for the elementary and the middle school teachers, and he gave a keynote presentation entitled Igniting the Passion for Reading. And so in our schools, all 6 elementary schools, you would see students and teachers talking about their hot reads or their favorite books and giving book talks. You'd see students blogging about their books, a lot of book clubs. We've had great volunteers from our community to lead those book clubs in our schools. And some other things that you'll see is a lot of technology used for e-readers and things like that for kids to really get excited for reading. And you'll see some of the data that we looked at is we have had an increased interest in reading because of this action that we've taken. Another thing that we have done is we've implemented the kindergarten and 1st grade phonics program, and it's Fontes and Pinnell Phonics, and that really works on that foundational skills that is also called for in the Common Core state standards. And then also each grade level sets a specific grade level goal that they're working on to really help with our elementary goal of reading. So some of the different goals that grade levels worked on throughout the 6 elementary schools were giving the specific feedback, as Laura had alluded to in the high school. Some of the grade levels were looking at goal setting, as the middle school is doing. And some other grade level goals focus specifically on phonics or some of the vocabulary skills. So these are some of the actions that we took for all kids during Reader's Workshop to really meet our goal.
As Ms. Prather talked about, she really focused in on what we call Tier 1 as far as our actions, and those are our reading curriculum that all students get. And if we're doing that really, really well instructionally for our students, we can get 80 to 85% of our students making adequate progress. And so obviously our goal is higher than that, it's more rigorous than that. And so we need an additional piece to that, and that's what's called our Tier 2 level. And so I'm going to talk about some of those actions. So at the elementary level, the way that looks is that each grade level has an additional half hour to be able to do some interventions for students that may need additional help in reading, but we also use that time to also do some enrichment. So I'll cover some of those actions. The first action that took place this actually summer and went into the school year was work that started in learning services with Sandy Kovach
and the reading teachers. And so they expanded the reading interventions that we have for students that need additional help to accelerate them, to get them to meet the end of the year goals that we have. And so by the start of the year, we had 7 total research-based interventions that we then had reading teachers and also classroom teachers trained in on, so they could match the right intervention with the right student need as far as reading. And so that's one of the big things that also assisted, and that really was a lot of work on the expertise with our reading teachers, learning those interventions and also sharing them with some classroom teachers that were also implementing them. During our intervention block, we also spend time meeting the needs of students that are already at or above grade level in reading. And so a lot of our gifted and talented services are utilized during that half-hour block. Many times they might meet 3 times out of a 6-day cycle with their gifted and talented teacher, and then also apply some of that work when they're not meeting with their gifted and talented teacher back during that intervention time. And so that's a way that we can not only meet students that are not quite at grade level, but also to meet the needs of students that are above or at currently our grade level. Ms. Praler also mentioned that we also utilize a lot of parent volunteers and also community members that come in and run book clubs with our students. And so we know that one of the best things that we can do is have kids reading, but also have them responding to what they read. And we are so fortunate to have the types of volunteers in our community that come in, share their expertise, their passion for students and their learning, to come in and spend 3 days out of a week or a couple days out of the week to come in and lead those book clubs during that intervention time. Finally, last month as a principal team, we talked about our support for leadership in the district, we talked about our support of the vision, and we also talked about our support of the system itself. And one of the things that we're really proud of is the system of literacy that we built here over time, and we're talking about this evening. Part of that has to do with our really strong teacher staff development with the Reader's Workshop. Part of that has to do with the collaboration and our common planning time. Part of it has to do with that intervention block that we have in place. And all 3 of those things are things that other districts have come and checked our district out because of what we're doing. But the other piece of that is that we have autonomy with our buildings to fluidly change and make shifts in resources. And I'll talk just a little bit about my building and how that kind of works. But because of the system that we have in place, as students move through, there may be a grade level that comes in with 90% of their students were reading at grade level, so we don't need all the resources during the intervention block. So it typically looks like the classroom teachers at that grade level, reading teacher, and reading assistants. And what we've done more of this past year is really fluidly shifted those resources. So there may be a 3rd grade level that only needs the teachers during that intervention block, and we can shift the reading teacher and reading assistant maybe to a primary grade to put more resources there to help them achieve and accelerate their reading too. And so we've been much more fluid, and in each building, if you'd asked our principals, it would look a little different because of our clientele, our culture, and the needs of our students.
Well, as you can see by the graph on the screen there, the 2011-12 elementary SMART goal was attained, but by having 90% of all K-5 students reading at or above grade level, as measured by those common assessments. And again, this represents a long-term effort and includes initiatives, strategies, and complete dedication from our elementary staff members. We're very proud of these results, and I would like to close before handing it back to Dave here with reading a portion of Superintendent Mary Bowenegger-Bratton's column that appeared on our school websites and also in the July 19th edition of the Hudson Star Observer. At the end of the 2011-12 school year, 90% of Hudson Elementary School students left school reading at or above school level, or grade level. This is an incredible achievement and the highest level of success yet. A recent 2011 report from the Children's Defense Fund titled State of America's Children shows less than 40% of U.S. children are reading at or above grade level. Hudson Elementary students are achieving at this impressive rate as a result of concentrated professional staff development targeted toward literacy, regular collaboration time for grade level staff to meet and review student progress, a systematic process for implementing needed interventions and reallocation of resources, and students engaged in the process of setting their own learning goals. Students are more aware of learning expectations and the path to reach them than ever before. Even middle school teachers have remarked on the differences they have seen over the years in the increased level of student reading attainment entering their doors from the elementary schools. This level of student success does not happen organically. It requires the commitment of the Board of Education to establish a vision for student success and allocate the necessary resources needed for delivering on the vision. The administrative staff works hard with teacher leaders to develop a plan to achieve this board's goals. Students come to the classrooms as individuals with individual learning styles and needs. It is through the daily work of teachers, support staff, principals, and district-level administrators that the district's vision, goal setting, and best practices are shaped into real outcomes for each individual student. The Hudson School District works as a team, preparing our students for success in their future. Thanks.
As I'm sure you can hear, a lot of results that we're very proud of. And it's the thing with the SMART goals is that it really isn't solely about meeting the annual goals. It's about fundamentally improving the student learning process in a permanent sense. And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about some of our next steps with the SMART goal process. Really can be summed up with two words. One is sustaining, and the other is refining. When we speak of sustaining, you just heard the elementary team speak to meeting the long-term goal of 90% of our students reading at or above grade level. That's a major accomplishment. We've been coming here reporting on the SMART goal process year after year on that continual growth toward that goal. Well, we've made it, and that opens up a new door for us. So now comes the refinement. Now we're at a point where we're able to say, what's next? And how can we expand the scope of the SMART goal process to other curricular areas? We look forward to coming to talk to you in October to share some of those plans. And then finally, we're able to expand the instructional scope of the goals. And what we mean by that is we're able to find strategies to involve more people in the SMART goal process. Originally, it started, as I said, as a teacher-driven practice. It's moved to teachers and students and family members as well. We bring parents into this process. It really is a full system goal, and we're very proud of those results at all three levels. Another final next step that I want to share with you is it came out of a bit of an aha at the elementary level. As I just shared, we met the long-term goal. We had a brief moment of, okay, now what? Because we hadn't really fully planned. We had several things that we had talked about and had some preliminary plans, but we realized we need to change the system slightly to modify it to allow us to continue that cycle of continuous improvement. So what we'll do is we'll establish the long-term goal. Again, in October, we'll share our new long-term goal with you at the elementary level as well as the middle school and high school level. And then we'll measure the annual progress toward that goal and share it as we are today. But when that long-term goal is in sight, it's time to establish a baseline for our next goal. That's a very important step. What we're saying is we know we're going to meet that goal. And when we get close, it's time to start thinking about our next goal. Then finally, we'll reach that long-term goal, and we'll establish a new goal with that pre-established baseline that we had just set. We're really looking forward to implementing that practice this upcoming year. And really, it's all about learning. And the interesting thing about this learning is that it's expanded far beyond the scope of what we had originally anticipated. Student achievement drives the process completely. Adult learning is focused specifically on the student learning data that we're that we're measuring and the student learning that data represents. And then finally, the learning that we had not really anticipated when we started this process is the way that the students use the data to guide their own learning. It's not just about us adjusting our instructional practices, it really is about students adjusting their learning practices. When you see that, then you know that the goal truly has been attained. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you. Board members, questions or comments?
Madam President?
Go ahead, Pat.
I would like to thank everybody for all their hard work. I'd like to ask now, we as a district has invested a lot of money, time in this process for the last 6 years, I guess. And our teachers have spent a lot of time learning, and I'm sure you as principals have done some education, and you guys collaborate also, right? And it comes from top down. The goals are set by the superintendent to you. Am I correct on this? Or she doesn't bring, does she bring anything?
No, that's a great question. It really is. It really is an organic process. The goal is set. Now there is definitely the administrators, from principals, district administrators. We're talking about the vision, but the vision comes to life when the teachers get together and actually create the goal. So the process that we start Monday is really where the goal is created.
From the teachers.
Mhm.
Okay, and then it goes. Okay, so then you, through this all, everybody is working together on this and supporting one another. And I would like to thank all the teachers for all their efforts, their time. And I also thank the board members through the years of supporting this for our students. And I've been proud to be able to support this also for the last few years.
On behalf of the entire Hudson school system, we're very welcome, and at the same time want to extend a thank you to you for supporting this, because it really is something that is supported system-wide, and the board's support for this process is incredibly valuable. We very much appreciate it.
Mary?
Madam President.
Brian?
Thank you. It's not my first meeting, but issues with the mic. Yeah, just kind of jump on there a little bit. It's great to see this. It's it's hard to always come in front of a group of people and different stakeholders and talk about kind of setting some stretch goals and where you're at. So appreciate you doing that. And second of all, it's important, I think, for any school district that's really trying to get to the next level, to kind of think about, other than the WKCE or whatever, national tests we use. It's nice to see, us trying to drive the district in other ways, whether it be, how well the freshmen are doing in high school, or, AP classes, or reading in elementary schools. And that's something you never get from a test. And so it's just great to see it. I think it's just something that's kind of foundational to our development as a district. And I appreciate all the hard work on that. So.
Thank you, Brian.
Madam
Matt.
President?
Mark?
I'm going chronological order here, or something like that. Just a brief question. Oh, I think so, you are. I think Dave had mentioned earlier that we even have the students that are somewhat involved in setting the SMART goal process. Could you elaborate just a little bit on that, Dave?
Okay, you bet. The way the students get involved in the process is by understanding the goal, not the district level goal, but individual goals. Teachers work with all students to set individual learning goals, and the students are very aware of those goals, and they're developmentally appropriate, meaning at the primary level, it's going to be a goal such that, I really want you to read these books that I'm going to help place in your bin at your just right level. Where when we talk about at the middle school level, there's actual goal-setting conferences where the students sit down with a teacher and establish an individual goal, and they track that goal. So it's bringing the students into that process. And then at the high school level, an example would be the surveys, where much of the data that will determine the success of the goal is based on the information directly from the students. It's not us as adults saying, yep, we can tell you've got a strong connection. The students really have a vested interest in that process.
And I guess just a comment to kind of tie in with some previous ones. I mean, first of all, thank you for the report, and congratulations on the results. It always strikes me as that this takes, I think, a lot of courage to really set a specific, measurable goal, and to be held accountable to it. And so kudos to you for doing that. And I think that the results that were elaborated here tonight are particularly impressive to me, because they are, as I think Principal Koch had mentioned, they're building in sort of system-wide goals. It's not just a particular group, but moving an entire building or an entire elementary group or forward. I just think is very difficult, and you've been successful. So it's been phenomenal. I don't, quite frankly, know how you improve on 90% reading at grade level. I don't know if it's possible to go beyond that, but I bet you'll try. But again, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Mary?
Madam President, Pat, brought up the idea of how systems approach, you know, how is the administrative team, the district administrative team involved, and the board with the school goals. And so I just want to demonstrate that in a way, in one specific way that the board will remember, and how you have provided resources to support this effort. So there's been collaboration time, certainly. That's one thing you've supported. But I just want to talk through a more recent one, and that is, you know, I meet with each of the principals about once a month or every 6 weeks, and we talk about their goals and their progress on their goals and their actions. And through that, I learn about what's happening at their building and am able to help provide resources. Sandy Kovac in Learning Services does the same thing as she's working with the principals and teachers on providing resources. And Corey McIntyre in Student Services looks at how can the goals of students with disabilities and teachers, their teachers, be aligned with the school to support all students learning at higher levels. That starts translating into providing resources, additional resources that they need to set higher and reach higher. So for example, just this year, for this coming year, you have added instructional coaches at the high school. We have some at the elementary as well. And we'll continue to need that level of support. So that's where HR starts, human resources starts coming into the picture, as well as financial services to support the resources that are needed at the school level to help our teachers and principals learn about best practices, to learn the next steps, how to raise the bar to higher. And so then it comes to the board for approval of those additional positions to help support our teacher work and our work at our building. So that's just a circle of how we all get involved in supporting this all the way up to the board level.
Sandy?
Yeah, I want to thank you all. I didn't really understand what SMART goals meant. I've only been here 3 months, so I was kind of struggling with what the picture was. Your presentation has really clarified that for me. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Your presentation was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is always one of my favorite meetings of the year, where it shows off all of your hard work, time, and commitment, from volunteers in the classroom to teachers to principals, administrators. It's clear you don't work in silos out there in the district, and that you're collaborating and using resources together. So thank you so much for the report. It was excellent. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Moving on to the 2011-12 preliminary AP results. Ms. Kovac.
Thank you. Thank you. I have the word preliminary in there for a reason, and that we're in a window of opportunity right now where we can kind of check student scores, looking for missing scores or missing names. And so there may be some adjustments in what I present tonight over the next couple months, and we'll come back with an updated report if need be. But that's the reason for the word preliminary. Advanced placement courses are courses that we offer that enable students to pursue college-level studies while still in high school. Hudson High School currently offers 13 AP courses, and now this past year, 387 students took 579 tests in May 2012. And just as a side note too, with the online offerings, there are an additional 9 AP courses that are also offered online. And here are the results, and I know I'm going to kind of piggyback with what Ms. Love was telling you just a moment ago, but you can see, if you look now from 2007 up each column, number of students from 2007 to 2012, 217 students all the way to 387. The number of exams, again, 329 up to 579. And scores above, 3 or above, 194 to 297. And just a reminder, it's considered passing if you score 3, 4, or 5 out of a 5-point scale in most cases. Colleges will accept that for credit. And then you can see in the percent of exams with 3 or plus, we did have a slight dip, but you can see just the tremendous growth that happened in the other 3 columns. If we look at those just, each one of those categories by itself, again, now you can see the number of students from 2007, 217 to 387 in 2012. That's an increase of just 75 students over last year, and over the last 2 years, you can see 280 to 387. That's 107 students in just 2 years we've been able to add to our AP rosters. Our goal has always been to increase the number of students participating in advanced placement courses. And the reason being is that research does show that a score of 3 or higher on an AP exam is a strong predictor of success in college as well as graduating from college. So we want more students participating in those AP courses. The next slide then shows the number of exams, and again, a tremendous increase. Many students have more than one AP course on their plate. And then the next slide showing again that we have, as was mentioned by Ms. Love, 50 more students with scores of 3 or higher. And then finally, just some comparisons with both the state and then nationally. You can see that we're above both the state level and the national level in all categories in every year. And with the increase in the number of students and the number of exams, our goal now is to continue to examine the rigor of our pre-AP courses in order to adequately prepare students for the advanced level work. And you'll hear more about that, as they mentioned, in our report in October when they come with the next set of SMART goals and the kinds of rigor activities and exercises we're going to be working on to increase rigor throughout the system at the high school. Thank you.
Board member questions or comments for Sandy?
Madam President?
Mark?
Sandy, with we have 13 AP courses now and 9 online, I think you said.
Correct.
Where do we stand amongst high-performing districts in the number of our AP offerings?
I couldn't tell you exactly, Mark, but I know we've looked at that a little bit, and we are pretty much right on target, especially when we add those 9 online. We're probably at the higher end now that we can offer both options for students.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Madam President?
Brian?
Just a couple other questions. What's online AP courses most taken? Do you know?
The Calculus BC would be one. We have a couple in biology, and then also some of the economics, like the macroeconomics.
Is it like 5 or 6 students doing those, or is it more than that? Do you kind of know the range?
No, we're more like around the 3 or 4 students in each of those.
And then what do we attribute? You know, there's almost 100 more tests taken this year. What do we and the number of students enrolled? What do we attribute that? It seems like it's a pretty big jump this year.
Correct.
Is it just the is it the SMART goal and the focus on it, or?
Some of it's the focus, and then I'll just sort of echo what Ms. Love said as far as they're meeting with students. Students that are currently in AP are meeting with other students to really encourage them to take those courses. Teachers and counselors are also targeting kids that they know are capable of those courses and encouraging them to take them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President?
Sandy?
How do the kids qualify for these courses? You said that some teachers recommend them for them, but are there grade point averages or something that they have to meet that?
Any student can sign up for an AP class. We have no qualifiers for students to take them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the 2012 summer school.
I think Pat had
I'm sorry. Pat, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask questions that, are the students explained in the beginning the need to take the test at the end? And yes, it does cost some money, but it saves going to in the college. I mean, because it goes to the college education. So I was just wondering, do the parents, do kids, do they really understand that? So they don't miss it.
It surely is explained and highly encouraged that they take the course and also take the exam.
Okay, and that they need to get a 3 and above.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, moving on in the reports section of the agenda, the 2012 summer school. Sandy Kovach.
And this really is all summer programming, all of the things that we offer during our summer programming. So the first, we're going to talk about elementary and middle school programming. In June and July, there are a variety of enrichment classes offered in a 2-week window from about 8 to 12 each day, as well as English as a second language classes, and then also some remedial classes. And we had approximately 550 students in those June and July programs. The enrichment classes consist of everything from things like cooking up a story, creative dramatics, digital photography at the middle school, and even some good old physics is thrown in as well. The students that come to those classes they just have smiles on their faces. I think they like the change in the summer. They can have 1 hour classes or a combination of up to like 4 1-hour classes in that time frame, and it's very well received. The ESL program tends to be towards the end of July and first part of August. Again, we offer a half day where they have a 1 hour of swimming and then 3 hours of academics. Again, another very enjoyable program, especially to go watch those smiling faces. At the secondary level, we do a lot of credit recovery. That would be one of the mainstays in June, as well as offering physical education and health for students who try to get that credit out of the way before, to exchange it in the summer so that they do not have to take it during the school year. And then we also have what we call a transition program. A lot of students who might be their special needs, and they're going from the elementary level to the middle school level, or from the middle school level to the high school. And this way they get to meet their new teacher and kind of get a sense of how the building's laid out. And that's hence the name, the transition. And again, there's about 530 students in that secondary program as well. And then our wonderful marching band has approximately 70 students in there. They already start in approximately April, May, so that they can be performing throughout the summer. And they're still practicing. I believe every Tuesday, Thursday night, you can still hear them practicing at the high school parking lot. A program that our community surely appreciates is our summer swim program. Runs from June 18th to August 10th. We offer 2-week sessions, so 10 sessions, an hour in length. We use the American Red Cross Learn to Swim program. All of our lifeguards are trained in the American Red Cross. We offer what's called waders, where the parents come with the students to level 6. And then we also offer, especially before we start in April and May, lifeguard classes, and hence we kind of build up our own lifeguards that we need for the program. This is just an amazing number. Approximately 1,170 students participate. We just finished last Friday. And again, the ESL students come for the hour of day in sessions 5 and 6, I believe it is. Other programming that you'll see just this week, started yesterday, we have summer orchestra. They call it String Fling. And there's approximately 110 students. And then next week we have the summer band camp with approximately 260 students. The majority of these in orchestra and band tend to be our middle school students, especially those 6th graders who are just beginning, or it's the 3rd and 4th graders beginning the program. Gives them kind of their own little boot camp where they get to learn how to hold that instrument, properly blow it, and really get some intense attention before they start the school year. So if you add up all those approximate numbers, because they haven't been verified yet, there are 2,970 students that touched our doors between June and August. Those aren't all individual students, but I know our community surely appreciates all that's happening, and I have to say kudos to my learning services staff, because you can see a lot of registrations going through our doors and through our window there. So thank you very much.
Board member comments, questions?
Madam President?
Pat?
Is there room for more?
If we would probably add an additional site, I know like in our June programming, we always have it for the elementary, we have it at 2 elementaries. And for the most part, the buildings are packed.
Do you have to turn away anybody?
No, we have not had to turn away anyone. I'd also like to, when you say that too, I want to add too, obviously the principals have an important role because they're supervising the students in their building. And then both Josh Helverson at the high school and Jim DeLune at the middle school play an important role with supervising at those 2 sites as well.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, next on the reports agenda is the teacher salary benefit comparability study. Ms. Sweet.
Okay, this is the first of 3 studies that are in process. The Personnel Committee met on August 7th and reviewed this data preliminarily. And this Thursday, our Teacher Advisory Council will review this data as well. Similar studies are in process through the HR department. We began to study compensation for student services employees and coordinators and supervisors, and we are still collecting data in those particular employee groups, which would be combined with the teacher study. And then we have also support employees. There's a study in process for their wages and benefits. And there is an administrative compensation study in process with an outside consultant. And the board will be requested ultimately, eventually, for all 3 of these studies and employee groups to establish goals, to give us some priorities and some criteria so that the administration can come back and make some recommendations to you. No action is requested at this time. It's just purely a report. Okay. I would just remind the board, first of all, that back in January of 2012, you approved a provision in the handbook, a compensation process for teachers. And the relevant part is really the second paragraph. And I'll read that. It's just a couple sentences. In an effort to remain competitive, the district will endeavor to periodically conduct comparability studies of the salaries and benefits offered by other districts. Such studies will focus on districts of comparable size, high-performing districts of comparable size, and districts located within 30 miles from Hudson. Such data will be used to inform the board as it makes its compensation decisions. Prior to the law changes last year in Wisconsin, our comparison districts were our WIAA athletic conference. Those districts were used if the district were to enter mediation or arbitration. Also, in the past, we did not research across the river. We did not research the compensations provided to teachers in Minnesota, and primarily because there was such a significant difference in the state retirement contribution. In Minnesota, it's been true perhaps always by statute that the employees were to contribute the employee share of their retirement. And in Wisconsin, that was not true. And in fact, it was typical, and Hudson would be typical, that the district contributed the employee's share as well as the employer's share. So given that difference, which is really significant, it seemed like one would be comparing apples to oranges. It's similar now, and it makes sense to broaden our study and to include not only other Wisconsin districts other than those that we compete with athletically, but also across the river. The grid that you have there is one that was provided to the Personnel Committee along with a review of the handbook provision. And it does show the Wisconsin districts and the Minnesota districts that we recommended to comply with the provisions of the handbook within 30 miles, high-performing test results provided through learning services, and comparable size within the range of 4,000 to 10,000. And you can see that all the Wisconsin and Minnesota districts listed met at least one of those criteria. We also looked, though, and we think it's highly relevant to consider districts where we have hired teachers from, where we've interviewed applicants from, and where we've had applicants. And you can see a whole list of districts there that would fall in that category. We also looked at districts who have hired our teachers, and you can see a few of those. and then where Hudson teachers live, at least 10 or more. Okay. So that list of both Wisconsin and Minnesota schools became our comparability pool. And these are the summary results of that study. First of all, the number of teacher contract days ranges from 183 in South Washington County to 194 in North St. Paul and White Bear Lake. The average is 189, but the most frequent number of teacher contract days in this combined Wisconsin-Minnesota group of districts is 190, and Hudson has 192 beginning this year, like Stillwater. The number of student days ranges from 171, Apple Valley and Eden Prairie would be examples of that, to 180, which is our student number of student days, and others. The average 177, most frequent 180, and Hudson with 180, and the majority of the other districts. So more than half of these districts had 180 student contact days. And that, if you'll remember, that is up from 178 student days the previous year. This is the first year with the 180 student days, and I want you to also note that Wisconsin law, a couple of different statutes require the scheduling of at least 180 school days or the equivalent. The equivalent is the inclusion of parent-teacher conferences. And that's different than Minnesota. Minnesota schools have, as you saw, Apple Valley and Eden Prairie, 171. But in Wisconsin, you'll see more frequently the 180, and due to the statutory requirements. Total paid time off, just in summary, a big range here. And we're looking at sick leave days, personal leave, and holidays, within the total number of contract days for holidays. Ranges from 9 in Elmbrook and Kettle Moraine, those are both Wisconsin schools, to 21 in North St. Paul. The average is 15, most frequent 17. Hudson is 17, like several other schools listed there. Just to break that down for you with Hudson, Hudson provides 12 sick leave days per year, 2 personal days, can carry over 1, and 3 holidays for a total of 17. Then we move into several charts, and we are following the Wisconsin Association of School Board model, their format. They have had a long-standing practice of comparing school district salaries, starting with the base salary. Those teachers would have bachelor's degrees and would be inexperienced. Then moving toward teachers with master's degrees and who have not taught, and then looking at the top of the schedule, those with advanced degrees and plus credits, and multiple years of experience. So we're following that particular model with what you see here. We did break it down with Wisconsin, Minnesota, and then we combined, and you can see how Hudson ranks, and then it's rather typical to look at the median. You'll see that there's a combination here of districts who right now have their 2012-13 salaries determined, and all of the others are 2011-12. It's relevant to look at 2012-13 because that's the school year we're heading into right now. But there is a mixture there. For the Wisconsin schools, Hudson is about $500 below the median, and this would be for the base salary, brand new people coming in. If we compare ourselves to the Minnesota schools, we're about $200 below, and combined, we are about $300 below the median, ranking somewhere in the middle. Moving on to the MA level, Wisconsin, we rank 9 out of 14, about $900 below the median. Minnesota, we're 9 of 10, about 1,400 below. And then for the combined list, we rank 17, and we're about $1,300 below. And then moving on to the last comparison, which would be the top salary, high to low. Wisconsin, 9 out of 14, we're about $1,900 below the median. And if we compare ourselves to the Minnesota schools, we're about $8,500 below, 9 out of 10. And then if we put all the school districts together, we're 17 out of 23, about $6,200 below. I should say it's awfully different how we're doing this, because ordinarily with previous negotiations you would kind of hide the data and bring it out at a certain point. It's a different world now, and so we are bringing it out to you and to others. The professional development compensation, looking at the big picture here, not just salary but other compensation, we have found that all 23 comparative districts, including Hudson, offers some level of compensation for professional development, either through movement on lanes, or we call them benchmarks at this point, educational advancement, national board certification, credit reimbursement, tuition, certification of clinical competence. That is a certification that is sought and gained by some speech and language therapists. So 23 of 23 offer some or several forms of compensation for professional advancement. The percent of district health insurance contribution, and this analysis is from the family coverage data, ranges from 70% of the premium, Bloomington would be an example of that, to 100% in South Washington County. The most frequent, however, is 88%, and we're like the most frequent, providing 87.4% in this coming school year. Benefit in lieu of insurance. We were surprised at this. We thought there would be, and we think there should be probably more districts offering that, but that's 6 of 23 districts, including Hudson, ranging from $3,000 for a couple of Wisconsin schools, Kettle Moraine and McWanago, to $6,800, Franklin, another Wisconsin school. The average is $3,900. We're close to that with $3,500. And if you're interested in questions about that, I know Tim can answer some questions about that benefit in lieu of insurance. Percent of district dental ranges from 36% in South Washington County. It's interesting, they pay 100% of the most costly insurance and only 36% of something that is far less costly. But anyway, to 100% in Hudson, and the majority of the other districts. Again, over half of the districts pay 100% of the dental premium, and we're like all of them. District retirement benefits then is an interesting, and it's a very it's a dynamic area. Everything here is pretty dynamic. I mean, this is a time of change and transition, and our data comes from either contracts that are currently in place. We sought the contracts. We've got handbooks. We've got also further information from officials, but there's a lot of change going on, and certainly retirement benefits is another area of change. But we found these comparative schools ranged from 55 to 58 years for eligibility, the average 56. The most frequent is 55. Hudson 57 is like Chippewa Falls, Howard Swamico, Kettle Moraine, Menominee Falls. There appears to be a trend, however, in increasing the age for eligibility for post-retirement benefits. Years of service eligibility, there's quite a range there, 15 to 25. The average is 17, most frequent 15. We're like the most frequent. We are like the majority, again, more than half of the districts 15 years of service eligibility would the other part of the formula in addition to age. Sick leave buyout, 11 of 23 districts, including Hudson. There's quite a range in terms of how many sick leave days districts will allow to be accumulated in order to apply to a formula. And it's 60 to 194 with an average of 107. And in this district in Hudson, we allow the accumulation of 110 days. The buyout ranges from $2,000 to $70,034. Ours is $11,000. The upper range of that are districts that currently offer that higher amount, but are not paying, either they're not paying at all health insurance contribution, or they are contributing a very small amount. 9 of 23 districts, including Hudson, have a health insurance contribution. 3 of 23, including Hudson, have a dental insurance contribution. And then, this is an area I will admit I don't understand at all, so I will acquiesce to Mr. Erickson here, but the district contribution to post-employment benefit, multiple different plans represented in these contracts and handbooks. Certainly this area requires a whole lot more study, but 12 of 23 districts, and I would say that this looks like it's a trend. And it's something that we would look at more closely. It's more typical in the Minnesota schools to have this district contribution to some type of post-employment benefit. But in the transition within Wisconsin schools from contract to handbook, you can see it developing. And somewhat like you have decided to transition teachers in this district who are eligible for retirement, you'll see that in other contracts where up to this date it's one level of benefit, and up to this date they're switching over to something like this district contribution to a post-retirement benefit. The districts vary, those that do this, vary in how the amount of the contribution is calculated, whether it's an employer match or not, whether it's vested, meaning once it's deposited, if a teacher left, they could take it with them, or not, and if so, when, and other factors. So this is an area that requires a whole lot more study. And as I said, we'll be sharing this material with our teacher advisory committee on Thursday and looking, for their reactions and input. And we will be bringing through personnel information like this, which is nearly done but still in process for other employee groups, and hoping to put it all together so that you can see the total picture and can guide us, and we then can recommend to you where we go from there. And just a reminder too that a base salary is negotiated through our teachers union, base salary. Okay. And anything you want to add, Mary, or Tim, would you, anything? Okay. But we're prepared to take some questions.
Thank you, Nancy. Board members, questions, comments? Sandy?
I do have some questions. You said that the board approved in January 2012, approved this study. Is that what I understood you to say? So this study is a result of what the board approved then?
Yes.
Okay. Has a comparability study typically been done in the Hudson School District in the past?
Yes.
Okay. How
We
often
have.
are they usually done?
Every couple of years we have, every 2 or 3 years. In fact, we started that particular process when Mary came. Mary suggested that we do a comparability study for our support employees and teachers and others, and we've
So
this is not new.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, it looks like.
Yes.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And when we looked at it at the Personnel Committee, I was
Yeah.
impressed by the amount of work that's
Yeah.
obviously involved in compiling all of this information.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been one presented to the board or the Personnel Committee for, what, a few years back? This is the first one in the last few years?
I think a couple of years ago.
Okay, so nothing in the last 3 months since I've been on the board?
No,
Okay.
no, not since you've been on the board, no.
Okay, all right, great.
Mhm.
I just want to make a comment then. I believe this is what, when Mr. Waldsberger accused me last month of being a liar and lying about this comparability study, he said I knew or should have known about this. There's no way I could have known about this, is that correct? Because there hasn't been one done to the board until now?
I think Mr. Welsberger responded to that.
No.
I would hesitate to wade into that.
Let's
This
stay
is
on
on
topic,
topic.
please.
This is on topic. And I just wanted to make a point. This is the first I've ever seen a comparability study, and I think it's wonderful. It's great, and I appreciate all this information. But this is the first time I've ever seen it. So thank you for the presentation.
Other board member comments or questions? Okay. Next item in the report section. Let's move on to teacher attraction and retention data. Nancy
Okay,
Sweet.
all right. Okay. This is a one-page summary of a lot of information. The teacher attraction and retention in the Hudson School District is good news. This is all good news. But one retention trend, not unique to Hudson, that I want the board to be aware of, and that it links to my earlier the presentation I just made. And under the retention of our teachers, in our collective memory, we have sometimes 0 and sometimes 1 teacher who will leave for a higher salary. This year we've had 4 that have left for a higher salary. I'll go back to that again in a little bit, but generally speaking, this is all very good news. Now, attracting teacher candidates, we are a district that that applicants want to come to. We had, for elementary classroom positions, we had between 150 and 200 applicants. We had over 40 applicants for each of our secondary core subject positions that we had available. Nearly 50 applicants for secondary instrumental music position, 1 position. 30 to 40 applicants for a learning disability teacher position, and approximately 25 to 30 applicants for emotional behavior disabilities teacher position, 20 for cognitive disabilities, 30 for a media specialist positions, 2 of them, about 15 applicants each for art, technology, education, and ESL, between 6 and 7 applicants for hearing impairment, visual impairment, world language, family, consumer science, and social work positions. The latter are positions that historically have fewer candidates available, and we are in competition with other districts in order to secure these particular teachers. Despite the smaller numbers, we did secure top candidates for all of the open positions. Now, we thought you might be interested in knowing some of the reasons that applicants give for why Hudson. That's a common question that's asked by an interview team. Why are you interested in Hudson? And this information comes collectively from the principals that that are part of the interview team process, and through our HR manager, Deb Weisert, who follows up and offers positions to them and has more extensive conversations. But these are the most frequent reasons that that teachers say they want to teach in Hudson. They refer to us as a district that's innovative, that has cutting-edge practices, that we have high standards and expectations. We have high-performing teachers and systems that produce results. We hear this over and over. They also talk to us about our model mentorship program. This is important to new teachers. They want to know what kind of system we have in place to support them in their first year of teaching, or as they transition to a brand new district. They like our collaborative opportunities and professional development. They've heard about and want to be part of HSD 2025. Some of our candidates are quite articulate about it. They've done considerable research on our vision, our mission, and our progress toward that. They speak well of our community. They believe that our community supports education, and they think it would be a good place to live, to raise their families. And in some cases, the candidates have children who are attending school here already, and they have friends and relatives who teach here and speak well of the system. Retaining our teachers, then, we have nearly 400 teachers. This year there were 17 resignations at the end of the 2011-2012 school year. And in order of frequency, and this comes through either the resignation letters that they submit or exit interviews, family is one of the more frequent reasons that they give. The family's moving out of the community, or they would like to spend time away from their career for childcare, but more than 1 year or two, because we offer a year of child rearing leave, as part of our practice. But these are teachers who want to spend more time than that. A higher salary, I mentioned that, and these four, and I would like to, I'm hesitant to comment in any detail about particular resignations because the numbers are so small, it could identify specific individuals. So I'm only going to focus on the higher salary, and just so that you know that all four of these teachers left for higher salaries. They were special education and ESL teachers. Now remember, those are areas where we have fewer applicants generally. Hearing impairment, vision impairment, those kinds of areas. And I'm not talking about $1,000. I'm talking about $10,000. I mean, we get to a point where we just plain can't keep them. But so we're in great competition for some of those positions. And this is a trend that's not just unique to Hudson. You do see there's just personal reasons sometimes, their own health. We do have people, of course, who move from part-time to full-time. We don't have a full-time position for them, and they have found one. And of course, occasionally we have someone who's dissatisfied and communicates that to us. If you were to calculate this, it's around 4% of the resignation, 17 of 40. And we are very much like River Falls and Menominee. They have both provided their data to me, and they have about half the number of teachers that we have, and they had half the number of resignations that we had. In both cases, this past year, they had around 4% resignation. The other school that we know about, not through their data, but through weau.com, is Chippewa Falls. And you'll notice in the they're part of our comparability study, and they are low. And I'm looking at the from the weau.com here. Over the summer, the Chippewa Falls School District has had to replace nearly 1 of every 5 staff members. That's 20%. Okay, and the superintendent there says this is something that's going to be felt throughout the school year and maybe in the school years ahead. Says teachers of all ages are leaving. He says the most common reason is that they can find higher paying jobs in other districts. And he said this isn't something we're seeing with our brand new teachers. It's something we're seeing with our middle level and more experienced. So we have to keep an eye on that. We're more like Menominee and River Falls. We should not be concerned about the number of people leaving, but we need to really keep an eye on and continue to be competitive with our salaries so that we are very strong teachers. The other part of it is the teacher retirement, and we had, there were 20 eligible this year, but only 3 submitted their retirement. And this is you can see the 4-year history there back to 2008, 09, 3, 5 the next year. High number 14 during the Act 10 law change, and then back down to a more typical 3 for us. Higher in Menominee, 5, 8, 19, and 7. And River Falls, and again, recent to past, 10 as compared to our 3, 15 during that Act 10 year, 3 the year before, and then 3. So we're doing a little bit better in that area, perhaps, than a couple of our neighboring schools. So that would complete my report here. If
Thank
you
you,
have
Nancy.
questions. Yeah.
Board member questions, comments for Nancy? No?
Oh, Madam President, just a quick difficult question, but I just wonder if you could, is it possible to generalize, Nancy, on the teacher candidates that we do attract to Hudson? I guess specifically I'm wondering, do we, is it just across the board, or do we tend to attract younger teachers, early in their careers, mid-career, late career?
I would say across the board.
It's across the board.
I think across the board.
Okay.
Principals out there, across the board. Yep.
All right.
I would say across the board. Yep.
All right, good, thanks.
Thank you. Moving on in the reports agenda then, we will go to the high school and middle school room utilization report.
Okay.
Nancy again.
Yep.
Have a busy night.
Busy night. Okay, as I make some introductory statements, Principal Laura Love and Principal Dan Koch can come up to the table here. I'll make some introductory comments, and then I'll have a few kind of wrap-up comments. At the July 10th board meeting, I did present class size data. And just to remind you, as kind of a foundation for hearing about room utilization at the high school and the middle school, the Board of Education guidelines for secondary course or class enrollments, grades 6 through 12, are 22 to 27. And at the July meeting, and it's still around that number, 1,314 students were registered at the middle school. As of today, I think, Dan, it's about 17 or 16 or something like that. And that's going to change. So that'll change with withdrawals and entries, which every day are happening. During that board meeting, I did report that 44 of the 246 core subjects at the middle school, or 18%, were over class size guidelines. And going to the high school, there were 1,721 registered students. I think today, Laura, maybe 1,726, something like that. But it's, again, dynamic around that number. And at the high school, 74 or 30% of the 250 core subjects were over class size guidelines. Now that's important as you consider the use of space in our classrooms, and they'll talk about some square footage analysis as well. Building capacities in the middle school, we're now close to 200 over the building capacities and 40 to 50 students over the high school capacity, if these registration numbers hold true at the time of our official report in September. But that's where we are right now. Room utilization, again, middle school principal Dan Koch and high school principal Laura Love will provide specific room utilization data for their respective schools, and the analysis of this data is based in part on the Wisconsin Association of School Board utilization and capacity measures, which are 80% of the time. All spaces used more than 80% of the time are rated overutilized, so there's that 80% cutoff. Those spaces used between 60 and 80% of the time are rated acceptable or normal, and those used less than 60% are rated underutilized. Just so you know that we're looking for 80% utilization. You'll see specifically that we're over that in most cases, but 80% is a good target, and it would be a target for future consideration with more secondary space, and would suggest an efficient use of our buildings. The rationale for the rating of WASB is that a building administrator needs at least a 20% leeway in scheduling classes and in planning for future enrollment and curricular program changes or additions. WASB also provides some square footage per pupil data, and for general classrooms, 35 square feet per pupil, and then they do have some special stations that range from anywhere from 30 to 150. The principals will give you some examples of the space, and not only to what extent their classrooms are utilized, but some specific examples of space that is inadequate. So I'll turn it over. Dan is going to talk first, right? Okay. And you'll see charts then up there or in your diligent board book.
There we go. Down or up? Can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. And forgive us, this is potentially a yawner as far as some of the information, and not in terms of its impact, but the way in which we're going to deliver it. I think it's a lot of numbers, a lot of things to take a look at, and we're going to try to summarize things so that it makes some sense to you as we go along. And we think that generally, there's been much debate and discussion about room utilization. I think we've maybe done room utilization studies even more frequently than we've done the compensation studies in the district. But it's proven to be a very important point, because as we continue to grow, the pressure on the existing rooms that we have just continues to grow as well. And as an example for Hudson Middle School, I'm entering my 18th year as the principal of Hudson Middle School, and for every one of those 18 years, when we have closed in the spring, we have always opened larger in the fall for 18 straight years. That's been the case. Now, it hasn't been massive numbers, but it has always been an increase. And as that just continues, that steady growth, it fluctuates from year to year, but that steady growth puts a lot of pressure on the existing facility and the way in which we can use the rooms that we have available for our programs. So as you look at the chart that we have, and we're just using what Nancy explained to you in terms of rooms that were being, I believe the description was overutilized, and those then where we still have some room to schedule. It's color-coded, and the red simply suggests that we are in an overutilized condition. And at the middle school, for example, that would involve in a 9-period day. I think I'll try to explain this sort of step by step. In a 9-period day, what you're looking at with the little X's is how many times, for example, just to take the top one, room 114, which is a language arts room, okay? The 9 periods are listed across the top. We have students in that room, wherever you see the X's, and that room is being used at that particular time. Green suggests that, as you can see, the blue squares, as you read across, show you that in this case, 3rd and 8th period, that room does not have students in it. And I can go into a litany of reasons why and how that condition exists. A lot of it might be student choice or the types of programming that we have, but we have 2 periods where that room is available to be used. As you work your way down through, you can begin to see that the increasing amount of red space on the right-hand side suggests that in the column just to the left of the red, it's either used 8 periods, 7 periods, 9 periods, the number of periods that room is used every day and has students in it every day. And when you bump up over 90%, I'm not trying to make a sad story out of this, but as a building principal, when you bump up over 90%, it's very, very difficult to find places where you can put students and maintain the integrity of your program. What you don't have on your chart that I have in front of me is a little bit of information. For example, if you would look at room 118, okay, as you move down, and they are all in numerical order. Room 118 is also a lab room. It's a science classroom, okay? And those classrooms are not really usable for other subjects other than science. You know, they set up their experiments, they set up their labs, they have equipment in there that they utilize all day long, so running another class in there would be very, very difficult. And you can see that in room 118, that classroom is used 8 out of 9 periods a day. And you can work your way on down through, and in our own minds, you might be thinking, okay, a classroom, a regular sized classroom. Many of these classrooms vary in shape and in size. And just a quick example here. For example, the corner classrooms in our building, the corner classrooms are a little bit larger. Those corner classrooms, approximately 28 by 29 feet, which is about 812 square feet. And there's a guideline of around 23, or you should have about 35 square feet available to for each student who happens to be in that regular sized classroom. I believe that's the data that we had on that. But the corner classrooms then are like 812 square feet. A regular classroom is 805 square feet. The science classroom is 961 square feet. So those rooms vary to a certain extent because they have been constructed to meet certain needs. There are rooms, for example, 129, when you look at the chart. You can also see what's in that room, which is a special ed classroom. We routinely refer to those as mini classrooms. And those actually only have 460 square feet. So the number of students that can be placed in those particular classrooms obviously is quite limited. And you can run up and down the line and take a look at how efficiently we're using those classrooms. The art classrooms, family and consumer science, the band, choir, the tech ed, computer labs, all of those rooms are used with great regularity and frequency during the day. The second page of this report is really the summary information, and you could read down through here and look at every particular classroom and the degree to which it's utilized every day. But you can see in the group, the information to the right, the classroom hours that it's in use, okay, 621, which is 92% of the available space that we have in the building. That's extraordinarily high. And you couple that then with the class sizes that we have, and those classrooms are well utilized and they are very full, okay? Classroom periods that are not in use, 54, that would equate to the blue, which is about 8% of our classrooms on any particular day. And classrooms greater than 80% utilized, 66, which puts it at 88%, and classrooms less than 80% utilized, 9, which is about 12%. We have 75 instructional spaces that we've identified on the chart, and the total classroom periods that we have available in the course of the day would be 675, and 92% of that is used every day. Now, I say that, and what I'm telling you is that's Hudson Middle School. I'm also going to tell you that we have 15 to 18 periods a day that we take from Hudson Prairie as well. So we have additional space that we have borrowed, from Hudson Prairie. First period of every day for physical education, since the elementary school starts just a little bit later than we do, we use the Prairie Gym for physical education for one period every day because we have three physical education classes that we schedule into first period because of the availability of Hudson Prairie. And we also use Hudson Prairie for orchestra lessons. So when I'm talking about the middle school and the chart that you're looking at right here, this is literally, sort of technically speaking, this is our building and the rooms that are in our building. We have expanded beyond that to include Hudson Prairie, as well. It creates a sort of a significant dilemma for us. And in looking at the chart, and I hope you can understand what our situation is. I'll give you another quick example. The room 162, for example, which we are now using for special ed, was a former part of the girls' locker room that we have remodeled and cut out of that particular area. It used to be an old weight room, the old weight room in the middle school, and we now use that as a classroom. 169 was the lunch area, the workroom area that had been set aside for faculty. That now has been converted to a classroom as well. We got some large space relief, large group space relief, was 2 years ago now, or that would be 2 years ago, with the addition of the cafeteria, the addition of the cafeteria space, a new weight room so we could get out of the old one and use it for classroom space, and then an orchestra room as well. So that has helped us. Physical education uses the cafeteria as well. That's helped us to a certain extent, but the long and the short of it is we are filling up, and we are trying to schedule at such a high percentage that we have virtually no flexibility left, in our building. In part, it's affected by scheduling anomalies. If someone would look at the chart and say, "Wow, there's a number of blue spaces. Can you put somebody in there?" Well, it's not quite that simple. The schedule, we're trying to personalize education for our students, which includes student choice, which includes providing curriculum that is appropriate for student ability. Math would be a good example of how the math program, we have divided our math curriculum into a variety of levels to meet the needs of our students. Well, when we do that, which we know is right for all of our students, you need rooms for those kids to go for those classes. And we are rapidly running out of those spaces in which to put those kids. We still do indeed have 17 teachers who are on carts, who do not have a classroom, who take their supplies and their materials and their books and put them on a cart and roll around the building trying to find one of these available spaces that we have, and we have plugged them in. The one thing I guess I want to leave you with, the last thing I want to leave you with here, and I certainly will entertain any questions that you have. You've heard me speak many times before about the middle school concept and the philosophy. And I am unabashed in my praise of the philosophy and the concept and the effectiveness with which the teachers in my school have implemented that. We have been gradually chipping away at that at a rather significant clip to the point where students in one house are now, because of space availability, needing to go to another house, to take one of their core classes. We have increased in size in our building to where one of the foundational principles of an effective middle school, which is teachers knowing their students as well as they possibly can, we have begun to chip away at that, bringing cart teachers in who really don't know those kids that well, but who move around from house to house to house to meet the instructional needs of our students. So the relationship building, and Brian, I was very pleased when you mentioned earlier that we were talking about the goals that educating a comprehensive education for the entire child, the whole child. It's just not test scores. There are other things that help contribute to the growth and development of students and middle level learners. That age 10 to 14. It is absolutely critical that they have relationships with their teachers. They understand that it's important they can interact, that they're available to them to go to ask questions, to find support. And a comprehensive middle school provides that kind of support. And we have been able to do that for many, many years. I'm not embarrassed at all to reference again. Hudson Middle School has been identified as a middle school of excellence 2 out of the last 3 years. People work very, very hard there. But the space that we have available for them is making it more and more difficult for them to achieve their goals. I've always believed as a principal that if I hired a teacher one of my primary obligations was they should have a classroom in which to teach. They should have a place to, you know, exercise their trade, to be the professional educator they can be. They shouldn't have to pack up, put their stuff on a cart, roll down the hall, go into another classroom, you know, and do that all day long. We have an issue. We have an issue, and the issue needs to be addressed. It's disconcerting to me that the concept, the middle school concept, is eroding. I know, Sandy, you were in the building and you saw the, you know, the large numbers of kids we had moving around the building, and the difficulty. I believe you were there at the noon hour as well, which is a particularly challenging time for us when we have them lined up clear back up into the classroom section of the building. And I'm not, you know, this is just not up here sort of whining, complaining, whatever. All I want you to understand is that we have a space problem. We have a room utilization problem. It's just that simple. We're trying as many ways as we can to meet the needs of our students in the facility that we currently have. But we need some help. You know, we need some relief. And I think Laura's going to talk about a similar dilemma at the high school.
So while Diane moves to the same grid that Josh Halverson helped us complete for the high school, I just want to share a couple of items slightly different from the middle school. We obviously don't have the house concept. That's an advantage and disadvantage when you're talking about space utilization. Teachers don't typically have office areas, and so they use their classroom to prep for the classes that they teach and grade and enter into the computer. And they also, during that prep time, typically will have students come in on their study hall to get extra assistance. So in several cases that you see the classrooms there, teachers are in those classrooms, and so you'll see a lot of 100% utilization of classrooms. So in some cases, that doesn't mean there's a group of students receiving direct instruction there, but it is the space that's being utilized by the teacher, and then sometimes to meet with small groups of students as well. And as Dan pointed out, and Nancy pointed out, not only is it important to have flexibility in the schedule, and especially to meet the needs of students with a variety of different courses, say in social studies. So it's not all social studies and you can just put it anywhere, but different teachers have different courses that they offer, and all of those have to conflict as little as possible in meeting the students' needs. So you'll see that we have extremely high utilization. I think the total utilization of the building is 97%, and the guideline from WASB was 80% in order for us to have some flexibility. We have 701 hours to schedule and 99 classrooms in which to schedule them. And the total classroom hours not in use are 20. And that means 6 classrooms are utilized at 80% or less, and 93.9% are utilized at over 80%. Maybe more important at the high school, and probably like the middle school, is that not only are we overutilizing the building by classrooms, but we are overcrowding the small classroom spaces in which students are learning. So on average, our core classrooms are 28 feet by 28 feet, and the guidelines that we have indicate that we should have about 22.4 students in those classrooms. And at this time, I think Nancy shared with you that 30% of our core classes are over your guidelines of 22 to 27 students per classroom, which means there are 28, and typically there are 28 to 32 students in those classrooms where we should have 23. The most important thing about that, the kids are very good about it. They're very respectful of each other in the space. They also bring their backpacks. We don't have enough lockers in the building for all students to have a locker space. But it really limits the type of learning that can happen in those classrooms. 21st century learning calls for creativity and collaboration. That's pretty hard to offer collaboration where kids are really packed in almost like sardines into a core classroom. In 2 classrooms, I'll have you go to number 531, and it's a science classroom. The guidelines would suggest for a 28 by 28 foot classroom, we should have 50 square feet for a science classroom because of the labs that students are to be doing. And that would suggest that we should have 16 students in those classes, and we have between 24 and 30 students in those classrooms. In the larger classroom, which would be like a large science lab, number 504, that classroom is 34 by 38, which means we can have 26 students in those classes. And typically we try to keep it at 24 to 30 students. So we're in fairly good shape. The problem is we have 12 science classrooms and only 6 of those are the large lab science classrooms. So most of our science labs are being conducted in a small classroom where we should have 16 students, even though we have 24 to 30. So I think that is it for presentation, and both of us would answer questions you might have.
Let me just say a couple things finally, and then, okay. I think between the previous report and this report, just some key points. Each of these facilities is overcrowded, and they are each over capacity. And the successful middle school concept is being eroded. The high school curriculum's been altered due to space constraints. You heard the science example there. And in some cases, spaces are being used in a way that they were not originally designed to be used. You know, the locker room that's been converted, the teacher's workroom that's now a classroom. And despite, and this is all despite the highly efficient scheduling of space. It's truly amazing how one can schedule a building 90+% of the time. We would suggest that you can stress the system only to a certain point, and how much longer. And we need relief at the secondary level. So now questions.
Thank you for your report. Board members, questions, comments? Sandy?
Sure. Obviously, there's a problem, space problems in both the high school and the middle school, and I've seen that. You mentioned that you've gone up in middle school enrollment year after year after year in all the 18 years that you've been here. So my question would be, what is the solution? We can't wait 2 or 3 more years to get another building online. Even if the track does get rezoned, whether it does or doesn't, it's going to be another couple of years before anything gets built to alleviate the space problems that you're dealing with in your buildings. Has there been any discussion over the years, going year to year when you're increasing, about what to do about the problem now instead of putting it off every year and waiting? Have you talked about temporary classrooms or taking over more of Hudson Prairie? How does that affect Hudson Prairie? I mean, do they have extra rooms that you could take over?
Mary, do you want to address that?
Multiple questions there.
Yeah, several.
Yeah.
And I'll just provide an introduction, and then Dan and Laura can move into that. We have had a plan and had multiple plans for the last few years, particularly at the middle school, which was the first that ran out of space. And so we are still in the midst of the middle school plan that we've had. You can see that we're still at the point where we need additional space for learning. But we have had a number of multiple plans, and the addition of that Dan talked about is one of those. Teachers on carts is another one of those, and we've been adding teachers to support our students and to continue to support their learning as part of that plan. And then Dan, do you want to add some comments?
The solution isn't going to rest, with me singularly as a principal at the middle school. The solution, you've heard the term a lot tonight, but is going to be a systems type solution that we're going to have to take a look at and see. Susie at Prairie has been most accommodating. There's a point at which she might shoot me if I have to go back over there and say I need more space over at Prairie. But she's been accommodating and understanding, and we've worked all that through at the district level, and the parents at Prairie are very much aware of that. I don't know that I would say that part of our solution would be to go take more space from Prairie. That then creates some significant issues for them. I think the one that is just, it's so obvious that our class sizes are simply going to get bigger. In the next year or two, or however long it's going to take, these classes with no more rooms, but continuing to grow, we're just going to have to make classes bigger. We're going to exceed, the board's guidelines significantly, in the next couple of years. But any real solution that concrete solution to our problem is really going to involve, the high school, the middle school, the elementary schools. It's going to involve all of us trying to figure out, how we can support one another, in this process.
How do bigger class sizes affect the type of education the students can get?
Well, let's oversimplification, but I'll just do it this way. Teacher has a class of 20 students, all right? Not that we have many of those around, but a teacher has a class of 20 students, in the middle school has a 45-minute class period. How much time are you going to be able to spend with those students in that 45-minute class? You got 20 kids, divide your time amongst those kids. 30 kids, the answer should be fairly obvious. You put 30 kids in that classroom, that teacher's going to have even less time to spend with the student. And actually, and when I say that, I'm referencing that in a very traditional way. And that's not where we are, and that's not what we're about here. We are about collaborating, and we're about project-based learning. We're about getting our students to be active in the classroom and engaging one another. You need space, for that to happen. It's not just going in and sitting down at a desk in a row and having the teacher stand in the front. The conditions under which you educate, and we are educating students today, dramatically different from when I was in school, and we did go in and sit in a row and listen to what the teacher had to say. Getting students involved in their own education requires a significant amount of activity, and that activity requires an amount of space. And if we want to keep our kids in the forefront, we want to keep our kids actively engaged, we want to personalize education for them, we just need more space in which to do that. So Sandy, the answer is it is affected. There's no doubt it's going to be affected.
I have one other question for you. Do you have any suggestions for this board for the next 2 or 3 years to help you out until something serious happens that would help you out now?
Well,
other than larger class sizes, because you're saying that's not going to be very good.
That was partly what I was going to address. I think part of it is that we can do these creative things to use the building differently and kick teachers out of classrooms so that we can put one more class in that space. And if there's a light at the end of the tunnel, we can do that. For 2-3 years, we're looking out. We know that there's a solution to the growing problem. We can take care of it creatively and resolve it with small changes that still hold integrity for learning, but there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
So you're willing to put up with this until then?
Yes. Well, with changes that we'll implement until then.
And so I would compare, sorry, is that Madam President? Or Chair, Madam Chair. I would compare it to what we did prior to Rivercrest being opened. And we had a plan, and our plan was focused on how to continue to support the learning of our students. And we could implement that plan for a short period of time, multiple years, knowing that there was going to be a new building that we could open up. So we moved students around the district to spaces, and that was our plan. It's not a perfect plan, but our number one goal is to support student learning. We're doing that at the middle school, an example, by the number of teachers that we have hired that are on carts, those 17 teachers. And those teachers are going into free spaces and moving from one space to the next space each hour of the day. So again, we're making our focus on highest priority of continuing to support the learning of our students with the multi-year plans that we've had, and we will continue to do that, hopefully in a shorter period of time, as Laura talked about.
Thank you. I appreciate the information.
Other board members? Mark?
Madam Chair, it's interesting, I think, tonight that we had our educators presenting their SMART goals and their results and their successful results. As a board member, you know, I'm kind of looking at this as my report card. And I think that, speaking for myself, I'm certainly not pleased. I think that really the primary role of a board member is really to help provide the resources to educate our students. Excuse me, and I've been here a long time, and so I'm part of the problem. And I guess for that, you know, my personal apology. The efforts that have been made at the middle school and the high school have been, I think, extraordinary. And we put you under a lot of pressure. You know, certainly the economy and the recession have been a significant headwind, I think, in trying to move forward with getting more space for learning. I do want you to know we've been working really hard. Obviously, there's a plan in place right now to hopefully secure a dog track and get some secondary space for learning. But I'm not pleased that it's come to this. It's pretty much, I guess, to me, the end of the line with 90+% utilization. And as you know, Board Member Gerke was asking, what's the short-term plan? You know, you can't create space. Well, I guess you can. You build it or you buy it. But that's it. I think the creative scheduling has taken us about as far as we can. And so once again, you know, my renewed pledge that I will do everything I can to make sure that this doesn't continue. We had the future of our students are at stake here, so it's a big deal. And you know, I am sorry that it has come to this, but we'll be working on it and be working harder than ever. Thanks for your report.
Thank you, Mark. Other board members?
Madam Chair.
Pat?
I'd like to reiterate with Mark there. I did not know it was this drastic. I knew that it was crowding. To know about the science labs and the kids. I mean, science is something we need to really work on here, and we need to get that. I really feel that, you know, we've found a place, and the voters in our town has said by 60% yes. And it's below, I mean, it's cost effective. I am eager to get this, where we have the dog track into our school for our kids and for the four-year high school in the end, and get the middle school functioning in another situation. So I thank you for all this, and I am going to be pushing hard for everything to get going as soon as we can. I want it tomorrow, but it won't be tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you for your report. We'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is St. Croix Meadows purchase, condition of bridges over Albert Street. Tim?
All right, thank you. There were some reports and in the media regarding the bridges, actually the bridge inspection reports on the two bridges that are at Carmichael and Albert near St. Croix Meadows. And we wanted to follow up and provide you some additional information and clarification on those bridge inspection reports, actually which were done in 2010. So just to start off with, I contacted a couple of bridge engineers, and one is Greg Haig with Wisconsin DOT. He's a regional bridge engineer. And the other individual is Jeff Durkee of the St. Croix County Highway Department. And Jeff is the county highway engineer and also a certified bridge inspector. Jeff has also been involved in inspection of the two bridges. And in talking with Jeff, the bridges are structurally sufficient, and he states they're in very good condition, including the deck, superstructure, and the substructure. So we have bridges that are in very good condition. In talking with Greg Haig, again, who's a regional bridge engineer with Wisconsin DOT, he mentioned that the bridges have a load capacity of about 250,000 pounds, which is about 3 times what the legal limit is. So they're built for heavy traffic. They're built for heavy weighted traffic. He coined the term mint condition. The bridges are in mint condition. And he said there would not be any improvements needed to accommodate a school with 2,000 to 2,500 students. The bridges were built to accommodate traffic higher than what a secondary school would generate. In fact, if you look at traffic and its route into St. Croix Meadows, most traffic headed to a secondary site there will exit prior to crossing the bridge on either side, or crossing either one of those bridges, because there are 2 separate bridges out there. What's happened is there is what's called a functionally obsolete rating on the bridge. And so what does that mean? And I guess we've got to go back in time a little bit and look at when these bridges were built. And the 2 bridges were built in 1991. And about 4 years later, a guide for bridges called Recording and Coding Guide for the Structure, Inventory, and Appraisal of the Nation's Bridges came out. So that publication came out, and that guide came out about 4 years after these bridges were built. This particular guide recommended that bridges with 2 lanes carrying traffic one way, these are the types of bridges that are typically found on interstates, freeways, and expressways. So they're carrying high-speed traffic and large and high-volume traffic, have a clear roadway width of 33 feet. Now, this is part of the key to this rating that was given. The guide has only one minimum standard width for a 2-lane one-way bridge, and so unlike a 2-way traffic bridge, which have many categories of minimum standards, and they're often found in urban settings where your speeds are lower, your traffic counts are lower. There's only one standard here. And so what happens is these 2 bridges have a clear roadway width of 30 feet. So they're under the 33-foot standard that's been set. And so what happens is the bridges are in good condition, they're safe, but they automatically default into this functionally obsolete rating. And again, in discussion with the DOT regional bridge engineer, and in discussion with the St. Croix County highway engineer, who's also been again involved in inspecting these bridges, they are safe, and they say they're in good condition. So I'll take any questions.
Questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Update on St. Croix Meadows rezoning. Request to the City of Hudson. Tim.
Okay, so I'll move on, and I'll talk about the timelines and dates for the request to rezone St. Croix Meadows. And so the district is slated to appear before the Plan Commission on September 6th at 7 p.m. and then again at the City Council on September 17th at 7 p.m. The district will be presenting information that answers questions that the Plan Commission had posed, including some financial analysis of 4 sites, and 3 of those sites were requested by the Plan Commission. The 3 sites they requested additional information on are the St. Croix County property at Vine and Carmichael, and that's the one near the County Government Center, County Trunk F and Red Brick Road property, and then the County Trunk Highway UU property owned by the district, along with the St. Croix Meadows site. So those are the 4 sites that will have a comparative analysis done. We'll be sharing information about student transportation, as well as market analysis of the region and the city itself. And President Tom Holland and Member Brian Bell will also be addressing the Plan Commission and the City Council, along with the district's consultants. The timeline for this information and the report is we're anticipating that the board would receive information as soon as it's finalized. We're anticipating that date to be August 23rd. And we also have to forward that information to city staff so the city staff can review the information prior to the Plan Commission meeting. We'll also be posting that report on the district website on August 27th. We've had a lot of requests for that information, but at this point it's still in process. It's not finalized, and our consultants are still completing their work on it. But once it is available, it will be obviously once the report is finished, it will be available. So any questions?
I have a question.
Sandy?
Okay. We had received I believe it was an email or a notice of an agenda notice from the city that there was supposed to be a planning committee meeting on August 9th, and then that got moved to August 23rd. Do you know what I'm talking about? That got moved out to August 23rd. I think Mary said that some of the plan committee members weren't going to be here for August 9th. So I'm wondering what happened to that meeting. Is that still going to happen? And now that wasn't a meeting that this board requested, but it was a meeting that the city plan committee was going to have on all of this information.
On August 9th?
August 23rd. It was supposed to be on August 9th, and then it got moved to August 23rd. I'm just wondering if that's still going to happen to your knowledge.
Now you're talking a specific agenda item?
Yes,
on there?
they sent out an agenda. The board members got an email about it.
And I think I'm going to guess that the particular item was, I believe it was there. Some members were not available for the Plan Commission, so that agenda item was moved.
Madam Chair, can I?
Mary?
Yes, we don't know if that meeting will still occur. We're under the assumption it is, because that's what we've been told at this point. But, that's up to the city. So we will let you know as soon as we know when that's finalized.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're going to move on to the citizens' request to speak. I just have an announcement that I'm going to read about the change in the citizens' request to speak for tonight. The Board of Education, along with the St. Croix Meadows owners, will be presenting information to support rezoning, as Tim indicated, at the St. Croix Meadows property on Thursday, September 6th, City Hudson Plan Commission meeting at 7 p.m. at City Hall. This board meeting is the last opportunity for community members to share information with the Board of Education prior to the Plan Commission meeting. In light of that, the citizens' request to speak agenda topic for the meeting tonight will focus on rezoning of St. Croix Meadows only. We want to make sure that we have the opportunity to hear from all seeking to address the board on this topic. In the future, we may also focus this portion of the agenda to specific topics of a timely nature, as we are doing this evening. If you would like to speak to a different topic, you will be able to do that at a future board meeting when the agenda item listed is for any non-agenda topic, or you may submit comments in writing on the back of the request to speak form. At our last meeting, President Tom Holland reminded the audience and speakers that we welcome comments about issues, but will not tolerate any disrespect, demeaning comments, or personal attacks by speakers. That holds true to any comments this evening. I will expect speakers to follow that statement made by President Tom Holland made at the last board meeting, which is consistent with board policy, and to keep their remarks to the topic that has been posted on the agenda, rezoning of St. Croix Meadows. We appreciate your understanding. When I call your name, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and comments will be limited to 5 minutes. First speaker is Sharon Norton-Baumann. Okay.
Thank you. Do I have to go forward a little more?
Thank you very much. My name is Sharon Norton-Baumann. I live at 1150 Front Street South in the city of Hudson. And I come to you tonight with 12 years experience in elected positions, 6 years in another community on a school board, and 6 years on the St. Croix County Board. What I'd like to say tonight is I'd like to address this board tonight about what I perceive to be the inappropriateness of the citizen request to speak portion of tonight's agenda. The City of Hudson will decide whether or not to rezone the St. Croix Meadows property. This school board does not have that authority. If citizens want to speak concerning the pros and cons concerning a rezoning issue, they would be better served by taking their comments directly to the Hudson Plan Commission and/or the Hudson City Council. I question whether or not the school board has the authority to pay a consultant to try to influence the rezoning of property that is not owned by the school district, but rather by another party. I question the appraisal fee paid by the district for the St. Croix Meadows property, when the purchase agreement clearly states that the seller of the property has the authority to have the property appraised after closing on the sale. This limitation on the ability of the citizens to speak about whatever is on their minds perhaps is designed to shut down any comments that might challenge the actions taken by this board during the July meeting. School board officials, in my opinion, and in my experience, are elected to serve the citizens of this district. I believe that limiting input from those citizens cannot be of value in ascertaining the concerns of the voting public, nor does that shutdown of comment action help to build confidence in the willingness of this school board to listen to those concerns of the citizens. And I thank you all for your service. I know it's not easy.
Thank you, Sharon. And I ask the future speakers to please limit your comments as the board agenda states. Next speaker is Barb Van Loenen. Can you please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record?
I'm Barb Van Loenen, 1101 Maple Drive. It's good to be in front of you this evening to talk in support of the schools in Hudson. At the risk of providing an unnecessary history lesson, in April of this year, the citizens of Hudson School District supported overwhelmingly the district's desire to purchase the St. Croix Meadows dog track property to build a secondary school. And despite the citizens' vote, as Tim just pointed out, there will be no school that will be built on that property unless the city votes to support rezoning of that property to a quasi-governmental status. I have a number of questions about that purchase that exist in the community today. Interestingly enough, those questions do not appear to be about the need for space, so that's good. They appear to be about whether or not St. Croix Meadows is the appropriate piece of property. I know that as board members, you have spent many, 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 many months studying data around what is the appropriate site, and you all decided unanimously that St. Croix Meadows is in fact the very best site in the city for us to build a school. I agree with that decision. And it appears that the majority of the citizens of the Hudson School District also agree with that decision. My hope is that when you all get to the City Council meeting and the Planning Commission meetings in September, and they have had an opportunity to review the same information that you have seen, that they too will come to that same conclusion. And we can address the space issues that Principal Love and Principal Koch highlighted so passionately this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Next speaker is Jim Schrock. I understand.
My name is Jim Schrock. I live at 414 Knollwood Drive. I've been a lifelong resident of Hudson since 2006.
Can you face the board and speak into the microphone so we can hear you?
I think I'm probably being picked up okay, because I tend to boom a little bit. My livelihood is speaking in front of people, but they pay me money for that. Here I'm not getting any money. I'm nervous as all heck. And I will go back and forth if that's okay. So, in a bit of a preamble, before I state my opinion, I'd like to say I went to the University of Michigan to become a high school teacher. And when I did my student teaching, I discovered that I was not qualified to be a high school teacher. I didn't have a red uniform with a red or blue uniform with a red cape. That's who needs to be high school teachers, and I would not qualify to do that. So I got out of high school education and focused my victims on adult education. They actually pay to come and hear all this stuff. And so my opinion is based on not any of that. My opinion is based on I'm here and I've got an opinion on this. Not from anything I've done, but what I do right now. And so my opinion is based on two things, subjectivity and objectivity. I've been following this all along. I don't have all the answers, but I want to thank, in sincerity, the school board for all the time that they've done on it. You've been under a lot of criticism. With public office comes a lot of kudos and a lot of criticism, so thank you very much. Nobody gets up in the morning saying, I'm going to do a wrong thing. They get up in the morning with the intent to do the right thing every day. They get up in the morning, they look in the mirror. I'm not going to be average today. I'm going to be better than average, and you guys have done that, and I thank you. My kids have been through the Hudson High School, or middle school and high school system in wheelchair, and they're still alive and kicking and doing pretty darn well. So thank you for a job well done. My opinion, when I think of the referendum, yes, it was overwhelmingly yes. I understand that. As a male living in this world, had I been living in 1911 or 1776, I might have had an opinion on those events that year. And if you're a historian, or even if you're not a historian, if you've been through the American school system, you probably know what happened in 1776. A lot of people decided they didn't want the king. But you know, if you look at the history, a lot of people, when that happened, they moved to Canada. And they started the expansion out west. A lot of people did like the king. And if it had been a referendum with the abilities that we have now to track things, I bet you that king would have got elected. In 1911, maybe the year doesn't mean anything, but if I'd been living then, if there had been a referendum, I might have voted, no, women shouldn't vote. I ask you, those two situations, would I have been right? No, absolutely not. History has proven that that was the incorrect thing to do at the time. My opinion on the referendum is we need a school. But I think the dog track is the wrong place at the wrong time to do it. For a lot of reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next speaker is Elizabeth McCormick.
Hi,
Hi, Elizabeth. Just announce your name and address for the record, please.
Elizabeth McCormick, 1123 Briarwood Court, Hudson.
Can you speak up a little bit closer?
Yeah, is that
Thank
better?
you.
Can you hear me now?
It's better.
Okay.
You can move it up if you need to. There you go.
Thanks. All right.
Great.
I need it. Okay.
Thanks.
Elizabeth McCormick. Can you hear? Okay. On the rezoning, you know, I really like the comment about the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it does make a difference for teachers and students when we can know that there's a resolution. It's much easier to get through a problem when we know there's a solution right around the bend. And my concern about this referendum and about this particular property is that we're sacrificing the light at the end of the tunnel, kind of pushing other options aside, and we're having tunnel vision. And my concern is that the school district is looking only at St. Croix Meadows, that there have been other options, and that the zoning issue has not been really properly framed in terms of the effect that it would have on the city, on its budget, and on available commercial property. You're asking the city to give up 1/3 of all of our commercial property. And I think you're right that the question isn't, do we need a school? This could be, in my opinion, could have been shovel ready had we decided on another property and truly explored that opportunity, but that didn't happen. So my question for the board when I finish is, are you going to go ahead, if zoning doesn't go through, is it your intention to go ahead with the purchase, regardless of what happens with zoning? Because there have been some rumors flying, and I just want to be sure that that the public can be aware of your intention. But in terms of the zoning, B2 zoning prohibits schools, and business district is different than residential in that if this would have been a residential property, you would be able to build a school on it, and zoning would be merely a formality. And this was brought up at the North Hudson informational meeting leading up to the referendum, where a citizen asked about zoning, And that question was answered, and the follow-up question, which I think is a really important question, the citizen said, well, okay, about the zoning, well, if the referendum passes, will you be able to build a school? And the superintendent answered yes. I think that was a really important point, because at that moment, at the time that we submitted the question to the county, that the board submitted the question, at the time we went to referendum, and straight away through until now, it's not been legal. It's a prohibited act to build a school. And the referendum question really asked the voters to approve a prohibited act. And I think when the voters were told, well, as long as the referendum passes, we can build a school, in my opinion, that was a misleading statement. And I want to make sure that we're really straight on what's happening here and what your intentions are in terms of zoning if it's not approved, if your intention is to go ahead and buy the property anyways and have tunnel vision, or if you will give everybody light at the end of tunnel and consider other properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next speaker is Jamie Johnson.
Jamie Johnson, and I live at 737 Garrity Lane in the town of Hudson. And I speak tonight, I guess, in support of the school board's efforts to get the property rezoned and follow through on what they've started. I think we've heard enough evidence tonight that with this, the need for space is definitely there, and that we can't address this by 1 and 2 year solutions. We need to move forward. And I appreciate the fact that previous boards, opted to purchase the UU property, and now, after further study, it's been found not to be the optimal site. And I think that Hudson has had a reputation of being great when it comes to education. We saw that in the teacher retention interviews, and also attracting candidates, good teachers, to come to the school district is because of the quality of education. And education is also the #1 service or predictor for a successful business climate is a quality education system. And I applaud our school district and specifically this board in the cost effectiveness that it's had throughout the years, through all the growing pains that Hudson has had and all the referendums. Hudson citizens have always come through, and they came through again in April to support a secondary space. We need it. And although I know it's only anecdotal, I haven't studied every district in the state, but I have relatives around the whole state, and I haven't met a relative yet that has lower taxes than we do, and that's because you do such a good job. We're at or near the bottom. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but I think it is time for Hudson to meet this, not wait until we're putting up trailers to put our kids in, and this is following through. I know there's going to be opposition. There's always going to be people that are opposed. And there are going to be people opposed even if you charged only $400. They would say, well, why isn't it $300? So I think that we need to move forward with this. The rezoning is the right thing. When you look at the property, it's going to be the best use for it. There's a reason it has stood vacant, and the fact that the school, is partnering with the current owners here. It's a great opportunity. I think it is a good location for the school, and we should do what's best for the students, not get by on a piecemeal district where we have a football field in one place, we have baseball fields in another. We need an auditorium that all the students in the high school can go to. And I think it can be done in a cost-effective manner gradually, over the years. Maybe the solution is a 2-year school. We don't know yet, because it will take another referendum to build the property. But the referendum to purchase it has passed, and how this space solution gets met over the years, I think we can lose sight of what's happening this year or what tax revenue is being lost to the city this year. We need to look at what this district's going to look like 50 years from now. And maybe I won't have grandkids that'll go to the school, but I still will be a taxpayer here. And as a taxpayer, I want to see us have a quality education system. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, board member comments?
Madam President?
Mark?
Just one, I guess, because I know I've heard this before, and I think it was Ms. McCormick that had mentioned about the district having some tunnel vision, focusing in on the dog track. I do want to state that the board has looked at every property that met our size requirement. When Tim Erickson was largely in charge with working with the brokers and scoping out sites, we asked for everything that met our size requirement, which is, of course, over 60 acres. So we've looked at everything available in our district, every property. Right now, the Uline manufacturing plant is going up on a property that we looked at. But we're a big government entity. We move slow. We lost that one. The county property that's frequently mentioned, of course, I want to remind everyone again, is too small. It's not the 64, whatever it is. The net is under 60. This board has determined that that is too small for a quality secondary campus. It keeps getting brought up, and if there's someone else that thinks that they, can better sit in judgment, then I guess that's their prerogative. But I think as a Board of Education, we should have the first say on what we deem to be an acceptable site. The county site is too small. So, just to reiterate once again, we've looked at them all. Why wouldn't we? I want the best deal out there. This is the best deal going right now. But every available site that met our size requirement was examined by the Board of Education. Every one.
Thank you, Mark. Other board members?
I have a question or a comment. The comment that Ms. McCormick made about purchasing the property anyway, if the zoning doesn't happen, that's not possible, is it? There's no intention of this board to purchase this property if the zoning does not happen. I believe in the contract it says that that is one of the contingencies of being able to purchase it. So if the city says no, then this is off the table, this property?
That is a contingency in the purchase agreement, that contingency would be met. There is a choice, however, so certainly I can't speak for the board here, but that's a contingency designed to be met, the purchase agreement.
And it would not be the intention to purchase it anyway?
My understanding would be that that would be a decision the board would have to make.
Okay, thank you.
And we haven't had that meeting.
All right,
or any
thank
discussions.
you.
Other board members? Okay.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Mary.
I do want to just say a couple things. First of all, addressing Ms. McCormick's comments about a question that she quoted me as answering. I think there's more to the story, and I think you would find multiple pieces of evidence that show that we could not build a school even with rezoning. It requires another referendum. We've been very clear about that the next steps after rezoning are a community conversation to determine the best configuration of the school, what should be on the site, and that's something that's very important for our community. So we've been very clear that there are multiple steps and that this one referendum does not build a school on that site. So I assume that I may have said yes, I'm not sure. It's hard to remember back, but I bet you there was more to the story that was added at that time, and we certainly have multiple evidence of that in our communication. The last thing I just want to comment on is Tim and I have been working with the consultants. We have some information, preliminary information. Nothing is finished at this time. There are multiple steps left. But at this preliminary stage, we continue to see evidence that the St. Croix Meadow site, compared to the other 3 sites that the city has asked us to look at, the St. Croix Meadow sites is much still the primary choice to build a secondary school. So I believe that the final report will prove that out, but we'll have to wait and see that report.
Thank you, Mary. We'll move on to the topics for action tonight. And the next is open enrollment exception requests. Corey?
Thank you. Board members, tonight I'm going to share with you some information regarding exceptions to open enrollment, which is a new piece of the law that went into effect in 2011, in February 2011, in reaction to Wisconsin Act 114. If you recall, in May, on May 29th at your board meeting there, you did take action on regular open enrollment applications at that time, which, if you recall, the open enrollment period was changed from 3 weeks to 3 months. And you took action on those applications that we had received at that time. What the exception to open enrollment rules allow for is parents to apply for open enrollment at any time in the school year, as long as they meet one of the 7 circumstances that is laid out based on the statute. Just want to take a moment to review those quickly with you. And in your materials, you do have a brochure from DPI. And if you look at that document, which is on the screen, there's 7 items on the left-hand side there. And real quickly, if the reasons that can be used for an exception to the open enrollment period is for students who have been the victim of a violent criminal offense, students have been homeless in the current or immediate preceding school year, for students that have been the victim of repeated bullying or harassment, for students whose place of residence has changed as a result of military orders, for students who have moved into the state, for students whose place of residence has changed as a result of a court order or custody agreement who have been placed in or removed from a foster home. And if the student's parent or the non-resident district and the resident district all agree that the transfer is in the best interest of the student. So I take the time to go through those because we do believe we're going to receive applications for exceptions to open enrollment throughout the school year based on this rule change. The bill does have many timelines and details. I'm not going to cover all of them. They're all very clearly laid out in Wisconsin Statute 118, but I'm going to touch on just a couple that we think will apply and actually apply to our 5 applications we have for you to take action on tonight. Specifically, when a resident district receives an application, there is a specific timeline, and that is of 10 days to respond by providing records to the non-resident district. That can include any expulsion or disciplinary records or any special education records. The other timeline that's of particular interest is when non-resident school districts receive the application. They have 20 days to respond to make a decision. And this is unique because tonight's board meeting is the 21st day of the application that we received. So I did call DPI and talk with them about that because we only have 1 board meeting a month. So the guidance that they have in writing on the DPI website, and that was provided to me in our conversation, was that after the 20th day, the assumption is that the application is denied. So if it goes past the 20 days, the assumption is that it's denied, and that is right out of their question and answer document. They did advise us, though, if that is the case, and in this particular case, tonight's the 21st day, they suggested the board go ahead and do take action so that there is record of that decision. And that is particular for applications into the district. That is only for that particular reason. The additional piece that I think is important for you to know is that unlike regular open enrollment, denial by non-resident districts for an exception to open enrollment may not be appealed, and that is right in the statute as well. So there's really a different set of criteria and different set of rules when we're talking about exceptions to the open enrollment period. So in our 5 that we have tonight, we have 1 request for an open enrollment in and 4 out. And so just by way of review of your previous action as a board, when you took action on May 29, 2012, there were 3 at the high school level, as is all 5 of our requests tonight. 3 of those were approved, and the basis for that was that those 3 all had siblings in the district, and they were all currently attending. The other 8 at the high school level were denied based on space, and that was the criteria that you used there. We do believe that, and actually I'll just mention too that the district had received during that regular open enrollment time 50 applications out of the district, and the board did approve all 50 at that board meeting. We do want to thank you for the ability of the board to be consistent in their decision making, so we don't have issues of being arbitrary or discriminatory in those decisions, and that's been helpful for us. That's been important when I've had conversations with the DPI as well. So regarding your materials tonight, you see you have some details on the enrollment in and those that are out, and let me just talk briefly about those. The open enrollment in request is a student that has moved into a different Wisconsin school district, not the Hudson school district, from out of state, which is one of the requirements, and they can apply to now attend in Hudson. And so that is the in recommendation. The administration is recommending that this application be denied based on space, which is consistent with your previous decisions by you as a board for this grade level during that regular open enrollment application period when you made those decisions in May. You'll also see in your board materials that we've received 4 applications for exception to open enrollment out. And all 4 have included in their reasoning that it isn't in the best interest of their student. The administration is recommending the approval of those 4 applications out, as the administration is in agreement with the parent regarding the reasons, the reason being best interest of the student after very careful consideration of the individual circumstances around each case. DPI does give us some clarification around what does best interest of the student mean. That's the one that seems to be most open for interpretation, and they just basically, and even in writing they do put this out there, that a transfer is in the best interest of a student if the parent and the non-resident district agree and the resident school district does not disagree. It's a very unique way of looking at it, but that's how they do it, and that they all agree that it's in the best interest, and if the resident district does not disagree. So again, the administration does not necessarily disagree with the applications that suggest that we're putting in front of you for approval out of the district. So in summary, I just want to kind of clarify that the recommendation for the application in, we request that to be denied on space availability, and that the 4 applications for outs be approved. And then lastly, just a couple closing comments. The DPI does acknowledge that administration of the regular open enrollment and now the exceptions to open enrollment really complicate things. And the other point I do want to make is the DPI did offer some guidance that other districts have chosen to have the school boards give the authority for those decisions to administration because of the tight timelines. Because if you have board meetings that may not occur during those timelines, and they could come quickly, and being the wanting to be responsive with the non-residents and districts and those things. So that's an issue for the board to consider at a later time. We will also be just taking another look at our open enrollment policy that was reviewed in 2010. It's time to look at that again as far as how does this play in, and we'll be working on that as well as we learn our way through this. Lastly, I'll just say, I know this is a lot. It's been a long night. It's a lot of information, but I did feel it was important for you to have a basis and a background for how this will play out, because I do believe we will see applications throughout the school year consistently, not just during the open enrollment period. So I do thank you for your patience and my explanation tonight, and I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, Corey. Board members, any questions for Corey? No? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the report that he's got here, the way he's written it. 1 person, 1 student out, 1 student denied, and 4 out. Is that the proper way to make the motion?
Okay. Motion by Sandy.
Second.
Second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent items. So if a board member would make a motion and read the appropriate language with respect to expenditures.
Madam Chair.
Brian?
Move to approve the consent items, include the Director of Financial Services being authorized to pay bills in the amount of $2,691,513.21.
Motion by Brian.
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the committee reports. Mr. Kaiserschott.
Thank
The
you,
loan
Madam
report.
Chair. One item. We met August 7th, and Ms. Sweet presented the teacher compensation study preliminary report, which we discussed earlier this evening. That is all.
Board members, questions for Mark? Next item on the agenda, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Brian.
I second it.
Second by Pat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.